Mic today.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Am I getting feedback? No, it's just, I can't even whisper today then, okay? It's that. All right. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. Are we not getting feedback? No, okay, I'll just keep my distance then. Before I go through the intros, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Stan Kumorak. I'll be your chair this morning. And my fellow committee members, I'd also like to introduce. I have Nadia Popovic on my left, Dominic Gully also on my left, Donald Taylor on my right, and Rick Ross on my far right. Phil Carvalino, who is our acting Deputy Secretary Treasurer this morning, and Phil Staff in the mosh pit. Okay. Are we good?
Thomas, I'm looking at myself, but I'm not up there.
Okay, well, we'll get the technical stuff sorted out hopefully by the time I get through this. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances to the provisions of the zoning that apply to property, permissions to extend or alter lawful nonconforming uses, and consents to sever property to create new lots. I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Our hearing procedure today, the Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, while others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx. The meetings are also streamed on the City of Toronto YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to do so may view on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating by video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee must fill out an application request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address as a Committee of Adjustment, and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government has amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Now only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and specified public bodies such as the City of Toronto are permitted to appeal decisions. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Our procedure today, we will call each item in order listed in the agenda. When you are making your submissions where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require presentation, applicants are advised to let us know if they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into committee for decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. We'll let you know if you're reaching your 5-minute mark or when you reach it. Any presentation material or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing this morning. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please also remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note, as I mentioned earlier, the committee may not entertain revisions to the proposal today. The committee may decide to defer the application if it is substantially revised to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that those entitled to notice on application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we call on speakers in the meeting room and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has the opportunity to rebut, but only those issues that were raised by previous speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into the committee for a decision. Okay, so to the top of our agenda, our first item is, are there any declarations of interest by committee
Mr.
members?
Chair, we're just having a little technical difficulty with one of the
Yep.
committee members. He's trying to sign in.
Okay, I'll hold off.
Thank you.
I can't turn down the sensitivity. Okay, because it's almost.
While we're working through our technical difficulties, I'm just going to take the opportunity to advise anyone who did not pre-register that's in the chambers, if you can kindly pick up a decision request card located at the left of the podium, fill it out, and hand it to one of our staff before you leave. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're rolling now. So I'm going to go back to the top of the agenda. So the first item is just a call for declarations of interest from staff or committee members on any of the items in today's hearing. Okay, seeing none.
Good morning, Chair.
Oh, sorry, I forgot, yeah.
I do need to declare conflict with respect to item number 14, 250 Wincott Drive. I have relatives who live on Whitcomb Hill and friends who live on Whitcomb Hill Boulevard. Both streets have a direct connection to the plaza, so I wish to declare a conflict of interest on that item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gully. We'll ask you to leave, and I'm actually going to ask for everyone's indulgence to hold that item until the end of the agenda, so we'll just have you leave at that point. So our next item is confirmation of the minutes from the previous hearing, which would have been June the 12th.
Chair, I'm going to move that the minutes of the hearing of June 12th be adopted as written.
Thank you, Mr. Gully. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Taylor, all in favor? Okay, the minutes are adopted from June 12th. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, I'm assuming we have no files to be closed? Okay, we'll see, potentially later. We do have a couple of referral requests, item 1 and item 15. Thank you. So let's start, well, we would have started with item 1 anyway, so let's start with item 1 with regards to deferral. Julia is the agent, and I believe she's online. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not sure if you can see me, but
Is it possible to put your mic a little bit higher, closer to your mouth?
I'm not quite sure where my mic is. I'm not sure if
We
it's
can
on
hear
the
you now.
headphones.
It's good now. Just
Okay.
Okay, so you're requesting the item to be deferred,
Yes.
and the rationale for that?
So we're requesting a deferral to allow additional time to further examine the applicable policy framework and explore how our proposal fits within the broader context of the existing uses as it's currently operating as mostly a commercial plaza.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Is there any other speakers on this item? I'm assuming not, William?
no, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Or Thomas, sorry, I don't know why I want to call you William. Okay, so I'll take it back to committee.
Mr. Chair, on the basis of the request by the applicant and no other commentary, I move that this matter be deferred to the next available date.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlik. Is there a seconder? Mr. Ross, all in favor? Okay, the item is deferred. Okay, our other deferral request is item 15, 29 William Street. And trying to find the speaker. Alona Canalieri.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Alona Canalari, and I'm the agent here on behalf of 29 William Street.
Good morning. Welcome. We understand you'd like to defer it has been deferred, but you'd like to defer it one more time?
Yes, so we had a new concern from transportation about the parking variance, and we've thought of a new design idea that should hopefully eliminate this variance, and the new concept will likely change the other two variances and reflect ongoing discussions. So we just really appreciate some extra time to finalize the new idea and complete the zoning review again.
Okay, fair enough. I just would like to make a comment. We had received one letter of objection on this file, and in that it was noting that there was a lack of process with the neighbors. So given that you're deferring now, you may want to take that into consideration while it's deferred.
Yeah, we have been in discussion with the neighbors, haven't been able to reach everyone, so we just haven't been able to speak with that individual. We have taken some neighbors' feedback into consideration and will continue trying to reach the others.
Excellent, thank you. And there was another registered speaker. Is that person on the line?
Yes, so we do have one person. Giorgio, are they in? Oh, yes. You can come up to the podium. Are you just observing?
You don't have to?
Yeah,
You're, okay.
perfect.
Thank you. That's all we wanted to know. Okay, thanks. So we'll take it into committee then?
Chair, I'm going to move that item number 15, 29 William Street, be deferred. The purpose of the deferral is to allow the applicant to have further consultations with transportation services, but also to have consultations with interested parties.
Thank you, Mr. Gully.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Popovic. All in favor? Okay, that item is also deferred.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carvalino, no other deferrals, I'm assuming? Yeah. So before we start into the meat of the items, if we can go to item 10 for a minute.
Chair, I was wondering if we might be able to converse about item number 16. Whether you might consider dealing with that possible deferment.
Hopefully we'll hear back by the time we get to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, so item 10, it looks like they may, well, let's get the applicant first. But. Oh, boy.
Sorry, just having a little technical difficulty.
Yeah, okay, so if we can get Andrea Rapallo.
So, Mr. Chair, it doesn't seem they're online right now. I'm just going to double check my list
They
here.
probably didn't think we'd call them yet.
Yeah, so they did register as the agent.
Well, we can deal with it in order if, I just thought if we're going to dispense with it, we might get it off the agenda early. Okay. Okay, let's go through the, yeah, we're back to item 2 then. 4. Okay, so item 2 is 301 Park Lawn Road. This is an application to alter the existing building by converting a portion of the existing indoor parking space into indoor amenity space and 2 additional dwelling units. The existing 6-story apartment building would contain a total of 41 dwelling units. There are 5 variances being requested. We have 1 letter of objection, and Andrew Palumbo is the agent.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. May I proceed?
Good morning. Oh, you're here. Okay. I'm just so used to everybody being somewhere else.
I was looking at him like, I think maybe he doesn't know I'm here. Certainly that. Anyway, good morning, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
morning. We also have an area resident, and just wanted to see if they're here or in person or.
Right there.
Okay.
I was
so-
sitting right beside her.
Perfect. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Committee of Adjustment staff. My name is Andrew Palumbo of Ian Hall Planning Limited, and my address is 38 Betty Nagle Street in Toronto. I'll be very brief in my presentation to the committee today, as a more detailed planning justification letter has already been submitted in support of the application, but effectively, this is a proposed development that's contemplating the addition of 2 new studio rental units on the north end of the existing building. On the first floor, they're 400 and 350 square feet in size respectively. There is currently a double indoor parking garage space there, which is in front of a proposed indoor amenity space for the building that actually hasn't been built out yet. The existing double indoor parking garage is not currently being utilized for any parking uses, but rather it's being used for storage purposes. And the proposed indoor amenity space is now being proposed to be relocated to the basement level of this building, which results in the elimination of a basement level parking space that is also currently not being used for indoor parking. It isn't assigned to any tenants and it's vacant. That's why, again, in talking with planning before this application, we didn't want to just eliminate the indoor amenity space altogether. So that's why, even though the below grade variances are triggered for the indoor space, at least the space and it's a compliance size wise is still being preserved. So that's why it's on the basement level. Figure 2 of the planning justification letter gives a visual indication as to how the indoor parking garage space currently looks. That's why it was included in the letter, to show that it is being severely underutilized at the moment. So overall, the proposed variances are more minor and technical in nature, don't create any undue or adverse impacts on the streetscape or the adjacent neighbors, as there are no proposed external changes to the existing apartment building. There are only internal modifications that result in a more appropriate and efficient use, which is rental units and preserved indoor amenity space, in comparison to the current situation on site, which is just underutilized and unassigned parking areas of the building. So in conclusion, it is my opinion that the proposed minor variance application meets the 4 tests for a minor variance under the Planning Act, represents good planning, and should be approved by this committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I have one question, and it pertains to notice. It's been the objective of Committee of Adjustment recently to ensure that tenants get proper notice. I just wanted to confirm what you've done for notice for your tenants.
The public notice sign is posted on the property. But as far as I'm, no letter, I was not advised to circulate a letter through the building, but
We're trying to encourage landlords to post front and back door as well.
fair enough.
Anyway, I don't believe there's any tenants here, so.
Well, there were at the first hearing when the two-story
Yeah,
building
yeah.
was added.
But just as a general thing, we are trying to.
That's good to know, actually, because I have similar applications as well. So
Okay.
that's good for me to know as well on a personal level as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from committee members? No? Okay, and then we have Elliot Platt. Would you like to speak, or? Please. And we're going to need to get your name and ad.
Okay,
yeah.
Gloria McDonald. I live across from the building at 298 Park Lawn Road.
Okay,
My concern with adding 2 more units is the parking facility. At the moment, they added 2, well, in the past few years, there were 2 floors added to the building.
yes.
And since that has been done, we've been having issues with people coming, going, or even maybe living in the building, that they're using our driveway as access. And I just wondered, with 2 more units, how many more parking spaces, or how are they going to handle that?
Okay. Fair. We're going to get the agent to address that in a minute.
Okay,
Okay.
that's just my
thank you.
issue.
Are there any other speakers?
No, Mr. Chair. There was just Elliot. Is Elliot in chambers? Oh, he's virtual? So I can connect him now. So yeah, Elliot, it was marked as virtual, but he's not online currently.
Okay, well, let's get Andrew back to address the parking issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when the application was circulated, I can confirm that we were obviously keeping an eye for city departments and their comments. City transportation staff didn't raise any issues with any of the loss of parking. And again, the primary purpose of the application is to more efficiently utilize very underutilized areas in the building. I obviously sympathize with these concerns, and I've actually spoken to the deputant. I would communicate them for most definitely to the property manager and to the owner, because that sounds like it's an issue that's occurring and not necessarily specific to the variances themselves. I know, and just for this site specifically, it's directly in front of a bus stop on Route 66, which is the Prince Edward TTC route, and there's still currently a parking underutilization at the site. There, aside from the spaces being removed, there are still vacant spaces at the property itself. That, again, which are the reasons for the application. We would have explored them further if transportation staff had asked us to, but they didn't request that in their comments. And that's pretty much what I have to offer on the actual loss of parking. And as far as I'm aware, and I think transportation staff would have brought this up if it was an issue, because anytime, just my personal experience, anytime I visited the site, I've never had no trouble finding street parking. There is 1 visitor space that's actually required in association with this application. Maybe that's why, because it's on that less of a scale.
You still have parking spots available, but no one's renting them.
That is correct. And the ones that are being removed are not assigned to any tenants, and they're untenanted, which is a major issue I know sometimes
sure,
with these types
for
of
sure.
applications.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, Mr. Plumbo, can you tell me, do you know if there's an extra fee for the tenants for parking? Or does it come with the rental?
I think it's an additional fee on top of what their rent would be.
Do you have any idea what that fee is?
That I don't know. I could confirm that if necessary.
Well, no, this has come up before where I know of situations where tenants are reluctant even to come up with the $20 a month extra so they park in adjacent properties, driveways, which is not desirable. Anyway, I don't think it's not fundamental to our decision today, but.
That's why it's also, again, I have similar applications myself, so it's good to even know this type of information, that this is the things that are occurring in the real world, so.
Okay.
And one thing I'll also just close with is that the whole purpose of this application, again, is to address a city mandate and increasing rental stock, and especially in this case, just severe underutilization of the areas that are being proposed to be repurposed. And the cities, notwithstanding these issues that obviously do exist, but the cities shift away from parking minimums. But again, with the idea that one visitor space is likely attainable in this type of situation with the street parking that is available and the access to transportation.
Understood.
Thank you.
Etobicoke is a bit of a different animal from the rest of Toronto because there's no overnight permit parking, and that's, so tenants who don't want to pay have more of a challenge to find that parking.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and I will be speaking to the deputy, and like I said, to try and maybe potentially deal with that issue or have them connect
Understood.
offline. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, seeing none, we'll take it into committee.
Chairman, I'm prepared to speak on this item. I have had the opportunity to carefully review the justification report that was supplied by the applicant in support of the application. I also had the opportunity to review issues related to parking on public road allowance. And indeed, even though there are no overnight parking availability permits here in this part of the city, there are no registered complaints relating to parking deficiencies. The practice of Toronto Parking Enforcement is to react to complaints. There have been no complaints in the files. I believe that the justification is appropriate in the way it was presented. It is a rationalization of space in the building. Those two parking spaces that are being removed are not active parking spaces, and I believe that the parking supply is sufficient. I would like to move approval of the variances being requested with respect to 301 Parkland Road with no conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Gully. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous approval. Thank you. Okay, item 3, 5 Darnick Drive, and this is an application to legalize and maintain the existing dwelling that is currently under construction. There is one variance which pertains to building length. We have on file an order to comply and forestry requesting condition 3. There's one letter of support which is from the neighbor to the rear. And Lou Parent is the agent. I'm assuming he's online.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Lou Parente of Napa Design. My address is 47 Loweswater Avenue in Markham.
Good morning, sir. I don't think we need a full presentation.
I didn't think so.
Okay. If you're open to just questions, we'd be happy to do that.
No, not at all. It's very straightforward.
Thank you. Any questions?
Chair, I do have a question.
Okay, go.
My question is, what caused this 1.65 additional length?
What happened was the original permit issue showed the rear porch as unexcavated. Because the property slopes to the rear, During construction, they realized, why not utilize that space underneath the porch for storage, pool equipment, let's say for a future pool, that sort of thing. So the actual length or the footprint didn't change at all from the original submission and approval. It was just sort of an on-site decision or during construction.
So it is at the rear of the property and doesn't negatively impact anyone.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, again, it was approved, the footprint remains the same and it was approved that way. Alls we did was underneath that porch, instead of being unexcavated, we've excavated it and made it a storage space.
So the exterior visual doesn't change?
Not at all, not at all.
So this was caught by an inspection by the building department, and that's why you were issued an order to comply on
That's
March
correct,
11th. Is that correct?
That's correct, 100%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, I'm assuming there's no other speakers.
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Thomas.
I'm prepared to table a motion unless anybody else wishes to.
Okay,
Yeah, I see this as an honest mistake, firstly, and secondly, it doesn't add to the massing of the building. It doesn't really impact the visual length of the building. So I see it quite minor and in keeping with all the tests so under the Planning Act. So I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 3.
thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Popovic. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous approval.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item 4. 52 Savona Drive. This is an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling in order to permit 2 units, and to construct a second-story addition above the existing garage in order to permit a garden suite. There are 6 variances being requested. We have 10 letters of objection on file and an objection petition on file. Ministry of Transportation has advisory comments. Forestry was requesting denial, or in the alternative now, forestry condition 1. And let me just go to my speakers list.
So, Mr. Chair, we have a pretty big speaker list for this.
Yes, I see that.
I've signed in whoever's logged in. I will call their name if they're in chambers if they'd like to speak. But we do have a lot of just observers. So I will just skip the observers. But anyone that's named as a speaker, I'll call their name just in case they're in chamber.
Well, again, we'll start with the agent, and
Yep.
then we'll call whoever's in the room before we go to virtual.
Yep.
Is Scott Wilson is the agent, I'm assuming?
Yes, I am.
And, okay, you're online, all right. So before we get to your presentation, I actually have a question for you. And if we can get staff to pull up the survey and the site plan. Because I believe there's an inconsistency between the two, and I'd like you to explain it. Okay, so if you look at the survey, you'll notice that the dwelling is not aligned perfectly with the lot line, but on the site plan, you're showing it in perfect alignment. So are you proposing to change the dwelling alignment, or is there an error?
No, we're proposing to keep the existing walls in place as shown. The site survey came at a date beyond when we did these drawings for the proposed work.
Beyond meaning after?
Correct.
So you did the survey after you did the drawings?
We did the original planning for the development prior. Survey came at a later date. The alignment is skewed from the house being perfectly aligned with the property line. but it is very close.
You may want to revise your drawings to show reality. And I guess my question is, what's the setback differential between the rear and the front?
It's less than half a foot. It's less than 0.3 of a meter.
Okay, so at the rear, which is the closer distance,
Correct.
are you within the bylaw?
Yes.
What's the,
On the main dwelling, yes. And we're not expanding in that direction.
okay, well, according to you, you're not expanding in any direction, but, okay, so what is that setback? Because unfortunately, the survey, when we enlarge it, the numbers kind of fade out.
So at the rear of the property, it is 1.42.
Okay.
And at
So-
the front.
Okay, so
corner-
now my next question is,
Yes.
when you're showing the site map, or the site, the site map, with it being aligned, what distance are you showing there?
We're showing it
1.22?
closer. We were showing it at 1.22.
And is that to the overhang or to the existing wall?
To the existing wall.
Okay, so you've got a fair bit of an inconsistency there.
Yes.
Okay,
It's 0.2 of a meter, correct.
okay. So I don't think that's necessarily a notice issue, but I'm going to ask staff for that opinion. And in any case, if we go forward with this application, you're obviously going to need to revise these drawings,
Yes.
okay? Phil? Like, it doesn't constitute a variance.
But there's also the fact that a survey is a legal document, which is the basis for all the other companies.
Exactly.
And to be consistent with the plant survey, it's always beneficial to both the applicant and to the city to have the plans show and illustrate conditions that are existing and proposed based on the existing.
Yeah, it's nice to see reality at the committee.
Yes, understood.
Any chance you might want to defer this?
The dimensions in question there, though, we're showing in our proposal that we're closer. Now, the reality is we are further away, and they weren't flagged as being one of the variances that we were requesting.
No,
Is
I
it
understand.
possible to still move forward?
Phil? Okay, I'll leave it to the panel to decide that before we get into the merits of the item.
Well, we know that they're gonna have to make some changes at some point.
Absolutely.
So why? We know they're gonna have to make some changes when they go for a building permit and so on. So why wouldn't we just expect that to be done before we approve?
Well, if we were to approve, we would have to approve with the condition that the drawings be updated to reflect
Right.
what's actual. Because we can't approve something that's not going to get built.
I think I'd be more comfortable dealing with, the word you used, Mr. Chair, was reality. I would suggest that this be considered for deferral by the applicant and come back once the variances and the survey and the site plan discrepancies are clarified and cleaned up. So we know exactly what we're dealing with, as opposed to, making some kind of a condition that
Sure.
things get cleaned up. I'd rather deal with something that's clean.
Chair, I wanted to ask a question of Mr. Wilson. In my view, we can proceed with this. Are you willing to take a risk in the sense that you may have to come back again and redo it if other variances are identified later? So are you willing to take that risk? And if you are, you understand that the risk is that maybe other variances may evolve, aligning the survey with your proposal. And if that's the case, then we can proceed. If not, you may want to talk to your client about it and maybe set it down for now.
And if you're coming back with a new fee application and not coming back at no fee as you would with a deferral.
Mr. Chair, from my perspective, the concerns are clarity, consistency, and efficiency in terms of use of time and resources for everyone. I'm in support of the applicant considering a deferral.
Okay, well, and if the applicant doesn't agree with that, we can still defer it anyway, just to make that clear.
Chair, I think just to be maybe overly fair, can we set it down and ask Mr. Wilson to confer with their clients?
I've just confirmed with my clients they'd like to move forwards. Proceeding right now, and with the understanding that we will have to provide a revised drawing at least at the building permit stage, if not sooner.
Okay, that's the client's position. We'll take that in consideration. Mr. Gunn?
I'm not comfortable dealing
We get that, and we're going to go to a vote before we go any further, but I just wanted everyone to get their position on the table before we do that.
So Chair, just one more comment. Mr. Wilson, you're clear then that when you go for a building permit, there may be a chance that another variance may be triggered. And that means that you'll have to reapply and come back. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Do we want to, there's a lot of speakers on this, and I don't think I want to get every single one to comment on whether they want a deferral or not. I'm assuming the consensus in the crowd is you wouldn't be against a deferral. Yes? Okay. All right. I just want to make one comment before we take this to a vote with regards to those who are here in opposition. A lot of the opposition stems from a desire not to have this type of use in the community, and I just want to make clear that that's not up to us. City Council has already approved fourplexes and laneway suites and garden suites, and these are as of right uses. That's not what we're here to decide. We can only decide on whether the variances that are being requested are reasonable or not. So whether this is deferred or not, I just wanted everyone to be clear on that. Okay, thanks. So let's take a vote on whether we want to defer or not. Mr. Taylor, I think you were looking to do.
Yeah, I'm going to table a motion to defer. I just, as I said before, I'd be more satisfied and comfortable dealing with sort of the reality of this situation. And there are discrepancies here that I think need to be resolved. So my motion would be to defer.
Is there a seconder to Mr. Taylor's motion? Mr. Ross? All in favor of deferral? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The item is deferred. Thank you to everyone for coming out. So that was item 4.
So since the item has been deferred, any speakers, you will be added into our system, so you'll be getting automatic updates. But when this item comes back to committee, you just have to sign up as a participant again. I'll just say if anyone who wants to just observe, that's fine. Just make sure you select that option. And yes, we will have your information ready to go for next time.
Sure. Yeah, are you, did you submit your name? Okay. Yeah, if you fill out a decision card, you will automatically get all notices for any upcoming hearings for this item, whether you're in the mailing area or not.
So if anyone registered using our Medallia link, or just like the survey link, I have you on our list. If you're unsure, you can fill out a card, but for the most part, I should have everyone. Yeah.
Okay, our next item is item 5, 103 Warwood Road. This is an application to permit a circular driveway. There are 2 variances being requested. Forestry is requesting condition 1 in the event of approval, and there is a letter of support from one of the next door neighbors. And our agent is in person, okay. That's good, because it's nice for it to start coming back that way, because
I'm sad that it's all opposition. I thought, oh, it's like the old days.
That's right.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I should have. Hi.
Let's get your name and number.
Yeah, no worries. I'm Angus Skeen. I'm the architect and agent for this application. So it's quite straightforward. I'm happy to present and happy to answer questions. This is a large detached home, or actually I should say a large lot with a actually quite small detached home on it, on a quite roomy street. And Mr. Di Michele would like to convert his existing driveway, which is a straightforward driveway that leads to an attached garage. He'd like to simply make a curved driveway, which in the terms of the zoning bylaw is called a driveway with more than one access on the same street. So I am here looking for 2 zoning variances for this, and they're both actually related to front yard landscaping. The bylaw contains the normal front yard landscaping requirement, which in this case is 60% of the front yard has to be landscaping. But it has an interesting little clause that says, look, if you want 2 driveways on one street, you must conform to the front yard landscaping requirement. So my 2 variances are interrelated. We're not off by much in terms of the landscaping. I think we're off by, the requirement is 60% and we're at 52.7. There are actually 2 letters of support, one from the neighbor immediately to the north and one from the neighbor immediately across. There is no opposition from any staff or neighbors. We have our application in with forestry right now. It's a pretty conventional forestry activity. There's 2 tree injuries to some city-owned trees. Both of those trees are invasive, non-native species. They're going to survive. So that's really the situation, and I'm happy to answer any questions regarding it, but that's the project.
I'll just start with one question. I think in a lot of parts of Etobicoke, there's a minimum lot size to have the circular driveway. Is that part of?
You know, it's weird. I sort of remembered that too, right? And when I looked,
'Cause I didn't see that as a variance.
no, and the truth is, I mean, this is a 25-meter wide frontage. It's chunky, right? Like even the bylaw starts talking about, the front yard landscaping provided we're under is hey, if your frontage is more than 15 meters, you've got to have 60%. We're already at 25 with a substantial city boulevard in front of that, full of all sorts of green space. So, but it's true. I don't know if that rule is still there or if that was under
Okay.
the old
Yeah, I was
version.
just wondering why that wasn't there, but that's fine. It's not really germane anyway, too.
No, but it's whatever. It's the laws, right?
Okay, fair enough. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Agent, what is the reason for the owner wishing to have this driveway?
The owner is a car enthusiast, so I believe he has some nice cars in that attached garage of his. I'm gonna go by, I'm not a car person myself, but I have a feeling he probably likes the idea of being able to drive in, have his lovely car near the front door. I suppose actually, it does allow you to pull up in front of the front door, get out and go immediately into the house. So maybe that's nice for them or guests or whatever. I took this, this came to me through the landscape architect. So the exact motivation I'm not clear of. I just know that I've met Sam a few times. He likes cars. He was hoping to get this driveway. He's lived there a long time. I believe it's his own interest, really.
Thank you. And then just to clarify and it might be in the materials, I've forgotten now. What is the material that will be used?
I think it's interlock. Like let me see what I noticed here, because it's,
So it'll be permeable in terms of...
Yeah, it is. Like I said, this is coming as part of a front yard landscaping project too, right? So I imagine it'll all be very attractive and permeable to some extent, yeah.
Thank you.
So my other question was going to be, are there examples of this? And I see a couple across the street. Are they larger lots?
Are you saying there's like there's 2 entry places across the road?
Yeah.
Oh, see, because I'm not even aware of that, right? Like I was actually, when I went and did my drawings, it was winter. Like, so maybe I wasn't even looking around, but if they're across the road, I don't know are you looking on the zoning map right now?
No, I'm looking on Google Maps.
Yeah. Well, you'd know better than me if you can see any concept of the frontages. If we check on the city's zoning map, I can see.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, you've got examples right across.
But it's actually funny. It was all covered in snow.
Because if there wasn't, I was going to say, does this exist anywhere in the neighborhood? But you've got 2 right across the street.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm not going to go there.
Fair enough.
Any other questions? No? And I'm assuming there's no one else to speak on this?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's take it to committee then. Anyone ready for a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application. I believe it meets the 4 tests, and the variances are in fact minor.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a seconder?
I will second that.
Thank you, Ms. Popovic. All in favor? Yeah, there is a forestry condition, sorry, before we sign off on that. Condition 1.
I will take that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, you have your approval. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yes, unanimous. Okay. Our next item, number 6, which is 9 Robinddale Avenue. This is an application to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard. The existing detached garage is to be demolished. There are 3 variances being requested. We have 4 letters of support. And who is our speaker? Darshan?
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning to all committee members. My name is Darshan Pandey. I'm the owner of 9 Robinddale Avenue. I'm here requesting 3 minor variances because we just want to rebuild the existing garage as it's very unsafe to use as is, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. I think we're just going to leave it at questions, if you're good with that.
That works. Thank you.
And I have a question, but I need to call up the drawings first. Hold on, unless someone else has a question. No? Please, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir. Is the new garage going to be the same footprint as the existing
That was
Insul
my
brick
question.
garage?
Yes, correct. Same size, same location.
Okay, so that's why you have some yard issues, side yard
Yes.
issues and rear yard issues.
Yes.
Same footprint.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, actually, that was my question. I was just trying to find the drawings first. Thank you. Because it doesn't show, it only shows the existing, it doesn't show the proposed. So you actually should be labeling your site plan as existing and proposed.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, but it's exactly the same. There's no change to it.
That's
It's the
fine.
existing structure.
Thanks. We're not going to send you back like the previous guy.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? There are no other speakers, I'm assuming? No? Okay. So let's take it into committee, please.
Chair, I'm going to move that the application be approved. It's a straightforward replacement of a garage. The variances that are being requested are appropriate and necessary to allow this to proceed. Move with no conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Gully.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Popovic. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous approval. And before we go to item 7, if we could do a 10-minute break? Thank you.
Excuse me, just one question. Did you get any answer on this?
I didn't know. I thought the recommendation
Yeah.
Okay, Thomas, are we good? Or a couple more minutes? Oh, okay. We don't need anything for this one. Okay. Okay, let's try to get going. Yeah. Are we back online? We're here in reality. Is the virtual world ready for us? I can start? Okay. Well, thank you for the indulgence for the 10-minute break. Welcome back. Item 7, 29 Parkchester Road. This is an application to construct a new garden suite. There are 4 variances being requested. TRCA has advisory comments, and we have an arborist report on file. The agent is Eddie Perez, online.
Hello, good morning, Chairman and committee members. I'm Eddie Perez. We're at 537 Rogers Road.
Good morning, Eddie. I don't think we need a full presentation here. If you're just open to questions, that would be great.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Perez? No? Okay, and we have no other speakers, just to confirm, Thomas?
That's correct.
Thank you. And if there's no questions, let's take it into committee.
Mr. Chair, if there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I would like to move a motion to approve this application. I believe it satisfies the 4 tests in terms of the minor variances. I note urban forestry has condition number 2, and I believe
They do?
TRCA has no objections. That's all I see in terms of conditions.
Is there forestry too? I missed it, okay. Perfect. Seconder?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. Okay, item 8, 211 Van Dusen Boulevard. This is an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing detached dwelling, 2-story front, east, and west side additions, and a covered front porch and a rear yard deck. There are 5 variances being requested. We have a support petition and no other information. Okay, and this is Baghdadi?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Bamdad Ben Baghdadi from BBA Design Studio, Inc. I am the architect and applicant. The address for the record is 13 Hollyberry Trail, North York, M2H 2N9, and I believe there is a cover letter as part of the documents before you today.
There is, and my only comment is I found your site plan hard to read. It's not very clear. I don't think we have any other questions, so.
I marked the additions on my site plan on the top and bottom parts. If you zoom in to the site plan, to clearly depict the addition part behind the garage and the back part of the house.
Okay, so you did a revision to the site plan?
No, this was there always. If you zoom in to the top or bottom dimension lines outside the property, I have the word addition. That's the additional part we are adding to the existing building. If you can zoom in, please.
You know what, I think it's okay. It was just a comment when I was going through the drawings, but I don't think we have any issues with it anyway, so don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions by committee members? And there are no other speakers, Thomas? No? No? Let's take it into committee then.
Mr. Chairman, I will speak on this item. There are 5, 6 variances associated with this application. I believe that the FSI that's being proposed, I think, is appropriate. It's modest for this area. And as well, the front yard setback, modest reduction, in my view. Side yard setback, not an issue. 4 and 5 are fairly straightforward. In my view, technical as well. It's a very good planning application. Move approval, authorize the 5 variances being requested, and subject to,
No
just give me a
conditions, I
moment. And you said, no conditions.
Okay, thank you, Dominic. Is there a seconder? Mr. Ross? All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval.
Thank you,
Mr. Baghdadi.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks. Item 9, 231 Berry Road. This is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 4 variances being requested. And Orzan Stembuk is the agent online.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, indeed.
Great. My name is Ozran Stambuk. I'm at 15 Moreland Road.
Okay, I don't think we need a presentation, but if you could stand by for questions, and if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. So I'll start off with one question, which is, why do you need the front yard setback?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. That is a very good question, and it's the thing that pops out for sure out of this notice. And the reason we need it, well, rather, not to say we need it, but what we've done is, if staff can perhaps go first to the survey, although as you said, you're not going to see the numbers. So I'll just tell you the numbers. We have the current front yard setback is 4.54 meters. The house is set quite forward in relation to the house, and so we've moved it back, and we've improved the setback to 6.29 meters to the front bump out part, but actually to the we've improved the situation quite a bit.
Yeah, we can see the outline of the existing on the site plan versus the proposed. It struck me because even if you were to shift that entire structure to the back, your predominant rear lot line or rear envelope would still be not beyond either of the 2 neighbors. So I'm just curious why, but okay.
The homeowner wanted to preserve as much of the rear yard as possible versus, for example, just building a 2nd-story addition on this existing footprint and maintaining that severe front yard setback. What we've done is try to engage in a compromise where we've pulled the house back quite a bit,
Yep.
while also trying to achieve this rear yard and maintaining as much of it as possible.
Fair enough. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, and Thomas, there's no other speakers?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, super. And there's no one in the room? Okay. Take it into committee then?
So, Chair, I will speak on this one as well. I think, again, the FSA that's being requested is modest. I think it's appropriate. All 4 variances are indeed minor. I'm going to move approval with no conditions.
Okay, thank you, Dominic.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair. Just with a quick comment, I appreciate the effort here to move the house a little bit further away from the street and closer to the alignment of the neighbors. And by the looks of it, your neighbors are happy with that too, so motion seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Rick, are you opposed or in favor? Okay, so unanimous approval then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. It's not a speed contest. Okay, item 10, 3668 Weston Road. This is an application to permit a vehicle fuel station. There is one variance being requested. And we were trying to connect with this applicant earlier because it looks like they may not even need that one variance. So if we can get that clarification now.
So, Mr. Chair, I was sent an email chain from the applicant, essentially telling them that since the item will be closed, they won't be required to attend today.
I see. So they're aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, so given that they are now in compliance and no longer need a variance, I guess we'd be looking for a motion to close this item.
Yes, so it was just a email from Annalisa, the AT in charge, since, so they received zoning approval and they will no longer need a minor variance. So they're just.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I would recommend you defer it until we confirm with them, and then we can
Close it later.
and then we can deal with any requests that they have at that time.
Okay.
Once their request is closed to file.
Yeah, all they just said too was they just received approval, zoning approval, so they said we will no longer need a minor variance. They didn't specify to close, but
I would recommend that we defer it, pending the disposition of the future of this file.
Okay. Committee members? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll move deferral to enable the applicant to confirm that in fact he wants this application closed, and it sounds like he probably will, because he doesn't need a variance. So the safest way to handle this, I believe, is to defer.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you, Dominic.
Second.
I'll just add a comment if I can, Mr. Chair. To be clear, any further promotion would be an administrative task and not a written.
It still has to come back to.
sorry, just want to interject. So the email they just sent me before was, "Hi Thomas, we received zoning approval and will no longer need a minor variance," and then said, "Please see attached." The email I sent to Annalisa, essentially the same.
And they're not going to be asking for any refund because we've already done the work on the file.
Well, that will deal
That's
with,
understood.
yeah, but that we can technically deal with when it comes back, and we can just do it at the beginning of the next hearing. Yeah, it won't even be an agenda item. It'll just be a,
Could it be on the next agenda?
okay, have we voted on the deferral? I've lost track. So we've got Don moving deferral, Dominic seconding, all in favor? Okay, so the item is deferred. Okay, so we're on to item 11, 15 Foch Avenue. This is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 8 variances being requested. Forestry is requesting conditions 2 and 3. Metrolinx has advisory comments. Mr. Milne Price, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, fellow committee members. Just for the record, my name is Addison Milne Price. I'm a registered professional planner employed at Design Plan Services, located at 87 Skyway Avenue, Toronto, here on behalf of the owner.
Okay, I think we would like just a brief overview.
Of course, absolutely. So this application before you is to construct a new single detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 8 variances that are requested to facilitate this construction.
I would particularly like you to focus on why the FSI number is so high.
Absolutely. Before I get to the variances, though, I just wanted to mention with respect to the conditions from Urban Forestry, we have no issues with that. In terms of the advisory comments from Metrolinx, there was a mention in that comment of a potential condition to attach an easement to the property. My client would not like to alter the land title, doesn't want to have any easements, so.
We're not going to attach any conditions from Metrolinx. We just advise you that they've made those comments, and it's up to Metrolinx to impose those if they see fit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's ideal. So just with regard to variance 2, the FSI, now this is also regulated by lot coverage. Variance 1 and 2 are essentially both looking at the building envelope. And it is true when you look at all of the variances, variance 2 does jump out to you as numerically higher than perhaps all of the others. What I'll point out in terms of the building envelope itself, for lot coverage, we're only requesting an additional 5 square meters above what's permitted as of right. The reason that the FSI appears to be so high is because the basement has been included in that calculation. If you look at the elevation drawings.
That's what I thought. I suspected as much. I just wanted you to confirm it.
Absolutely. And just one additional comment I'll point out, not to belabor this point, but even if that basement GFA were to be included, it still would not be the largest approval. The proposed FSI with the basement included is 277.86 square meters, whereas just a few doors down the road at 8 Foch Ave, that house has a GFA of 322 square meters. So just from a numerical point, it is in line with the neighborhood. Just really quickly, I'll touch on the other variances. With respect to the side yard setback, the side yards are going to be very consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. In fact, what we're proposing is a significant improvement from what currently exists. The existing dwelling has a side yard on the north side of 0.42 meters and 0.36 on the south. So we're essentially doubling the side yards on both sides, and it's going to be very similar to what is there on both neighbors. You can see that on the site plan. With respect to the height variance, I'll just note that our height is essentially going to be the exact same as the neighboring building at 17 Foch Ave. That was recently approved in 2014. It has a height 2 centimeters higher, but again, essentially the same as what we are searching for today. In terms of the height of pedestrian entrance variance, again, this is, I think, a very minor request. It essentially is just 2 risers in height. And just lastly, with respect to the maximum permitted area of the platform, this variance, it does tie into the fact that the basement is counted as the first floor, so the rear deck is considered as a balcony, even though it's going to be accessed through what is functionally the main floor. However, even when considered as a balcony, I'll point out that it is quite similar to some other approvals for balconies in this neighborhood.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Agent, did you say that the neighbor was recently approved in 2014, or did you mean 2024?
In 2014 was the approval for 17 Foch.
Okay, there are no other speakers, I'm assuming.
And that's correct.
Okay. Let's take it into committee. Thank you, Mr. Price.
Chairman, I'm prepared to speak on this item. Indeed, there are 8 variances before us being requested, but I think if you look at each of the variances individually, collectively, the character of the neighborhood is being adhered to. I think the scale and the physical character of this house fits in the community. I believe the variances are appropriate. They are valid. Move approval to authorize all 8 variances with urban forestry conditions 2 and 3, and the Metrolinx comment is just advisory. So just with the urban forestry conditions.
Thank you, Dominic.
I second that.
Thank you, Natalia. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, on to item 12, 42 Chestnut Hills Parkway. This is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 6 variances being requested, one of which has since been reduced. Forestry is requesting condition 1. There is an arborist report on file. We have support and we have objections, and I have some confusion around that, which I'll ask when we get the applicant. And the applicant is Curtis, who is virtual.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, fellow committee members. My name is Curtis Van Keulen of Hughes Design Studio.
Good morning, sir. Just before you get into your presentation, which we would like you to do, I'm just a little bit confused because in your list of objectors and your list of supporters, number 44 Chestnut Hills appears in both. Can you explain that?
We did get signed letters of no objection from them. I don't know why they're also on the objections list. I don't know if they're registered to speak today. We weren't able to connect back with them after noticing that recently. But if they're on and registered to speak today, then I definitely, like to address that for sure.
Well, there's a letter of opposition, and then, as you said, they're on the list of non-objectors, so looks a little weird, but okay.
Yes, for sure, and of course, I'd love to ask them that as well. So.
Okay, so let's hear from you for your presentation, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We are seeking a total of 6 variances.
Sorry, actually, before you get into that, I have one more question.
Of course.
You've reduced the coverage. Does that not, like, you've reduced the coverage, but does that not affect your GFA?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, the reduction of the coverage was strictly related to the covered porch and storage area under the rear.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So today in front of you, we have 6 variances, number 1 of which is tied to number 4 as well. So it's the dwelling depth and dwelling length. The majority of the building itself, if staff would like to, I don't know if staff has the site plan on the screen, the majority of the dwelling length and dwelling depth is attributed to the extension of the rear covered porch, and because of the space underneath it. If staff could show the revised site plan, please. Sorry. So back to, there we go, thank you. So the extension of the rear covered porch is counted in the dwelling depth and length due to the fact that there are storage areas with contained underneath that rear covered porch. So that has to be calculated, but the majority of the dwelling itself complies to the restrictions of the zoning bylaw, and is really just the 1-story covered porch extension as well as the room contained underneath the concrete porch that has to be calculated in that. So I just wanted to clarify those. For the FSI, we're seeking a variance of an additional about 100 square meters. We can attribute that to some internal spatial requirements from the clients, which would be an enlarged pantry and mudroom area as well as enlarged laundry area. This is due to the fact of their large family and the fact that they demand a little bit more living space. The majority of the coverage, as mentioned for number 5, was reduced in talks with staff. They noted that they were not happy with the coverage presented. We reduced the lot coverage down to 37.7, I believe, which is just a few percent over the requirement. So overall, the massing of the home in keeping with the zoning bylaw is just a little bit over, and tying that back to the FSI, even though the coverage is just slightly over, the FSI is still contained within that footprint. And then just going to the number 6, the dwelling height, wall height restriction. We're seeking a variance of about 0.5 meters. The restriction kind of takes into place the shape of the roof. The roof shape itself is cottage style, sloped on all sides. The massing is reduced overall. There are no gables proposed, and that is kind of what the max wall height restriction kind of plays into. Are there gables which increase massing and dominance within the shape of the home? We've designed the house so that the roof itself slopes away from the viewer on all angles, and such that it does not impact in terms of massing in that regard. And then the last one I just want to address, number 3, would be the side yard variances. We've left about 1.4 meters total on either side for appropriate drainage, etc. And a lot of the opposition did note drainage in the area, and we will be completing, engineered grading plans and drainage plans in order to assure everyone and the city Transportation Works Department that we do meet the rainwater runoff, and we're making sure that it's all engineered properly. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would submit it back to you and any questions that you or the committee might have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay. We have a speaker online, Thomas?
Yes, I'll connect them now.
Good morning, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Good morning. Could you just get your name and address, please?
Yes, it's Deirdre Dawson, 43 Chestnut Hills Parkway. And my husband, Mark Taylor, also submitted a letter.
Yep. We saw that.
Sorry, can you just mute the background? Or like just put the volume a little bit down. We're just getting a bit of feedback on your end.
Sure. Is that better?
Yes, it is, because I'm not hearing myself behind you now.
Okay. So I do have a presentation, which I see is up on the screen. So I'll just speak to that in
Yeah,
slide
please go
1.
ahead.
The property 42 Chestnut Hills is pictured there in the neighborhood. The next 2 slides show existing pictures of the existing homes on the block. So there's a comparison to what the character of the neighborhood is like. On the same side as 42 Chestnut Hills, I just want to point out that number 38, which is 2 doors down, is currently under construction. No variances were requested for that property. Slide 3, the opposite side of the street, is also made up of homes primarily with their original footprints. One home is shaded from Google Photos, which is where I got these pictures. It's a bigger 2-story home, but not as big as the proposed build at 42. Number 41 Chestnut Hills has also recently put on an addition, but without requesting any overages from the bylaws. As was mentioned by the agent, the neighborhood there are issues with flooding in the neighborhood. It's built on an underground stream, and generally tree removal and expansion of non-permeable surfaces increases risks to all homes in this area, most of which have been flooded more than once in the last 10 years. For slide 4, as you know, the 4 tests of variance, I don't believe that this proposal meets test 3 or 4, and I'll go into that. So slide 5, just expanding on the flooding in the area. It's a major problem. It's gotten noticeably worse as the neighborhood has increased new builds, new pools, installation of large driveways with non-permeable landscaping, and removal of trees and shrubberies. Slide 6 is a table summarizing the variances requested. In my view, these variances are not minor nor in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And the lot coverage, which was reduced from a request of 40.15% to 37.7%, still represents a large increase in footprint. The setbacks for the yard The plans are requesting, so I'll go on to the last slide now, which is in relation to the tree removals and tree declaration, arborist report, etc. 2 mature trees and all hedges and shrubbery in the backyard have already been removed. The plans request the additional hedge removals at the front of the property, with the size of the property planned and the requested setbacks, side setbacks. It's very hard to imagine that additional private trees, of which 3 are mentioned in the report, will not be damaged. We're opposed to removing any additional trees or hedges that, as these contribute to reducing pollution in the city and cooling of the city. And we all know what a problem that was in the last few days. And it is only going to become an increasing problem in the next years ahead. I think the other thing that I'd like to note today is that there, as I mentioned, a number of the houses on this block still have the original footprint, were built in the 50s. The owners are quite elderly, and it's very likely in the next 5 to 10 years that those houses will be sold and rebuilds will happen as is appropriate. But there is a possibility that this house could set a precedent on this block, which I think in the size being requested would not be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and would contribute to less greening, which is part of Toronto's urban plan, less greening and more pollution if additional builds continued in this vein. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members for the deputy?
Are there any of the variances that you're more concerned with than others?
I think the variances, particularly in the yard side setbacks, are a particular concern because of the further removal of greenery and the possibility of harming trees on the adjacent properties. And I know the adjacent property owners have provided form letters of support, but that's my particular view, my husband's view. And the overall lot coverage, I think, is also still very large.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thomas, do we have anyone else online?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So let's come back to the applicant.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, fellow committee members. Just to address the concerns with the trees and hedges, we will further submit and go through all the necessary tree removal permits and submit the documents from our arborist. We've already started that process. We've had our arborist report done. Our arborist is very confident that the trees indicated that will require preservation will be preserved, and then as long as the proper hoarding is in place and everything is smooth, it should be no problem at all as per his report. Going back to the lot coverage, there was a look at the lot coverage being further reduced. If we had no room underneath the proposed rear deck and the area of the porch itself is completely uncovered, we'd be very, very close to the 35%, if anything, maybe 0.5% over. So the building itself, as I mentioned, mainly complies to that, as well as the length and depth. The elimination of the rear covered porch and the room underneath the concrete porch would bring us into almost full compliance with the lot coverage. So the massing itself is really not affecting the neighbors in terms of this one-story covered porch and the room beneath the concrete porch, in terms of its overage and impact on the neighbors. Overall, we feel all of these variances are minor in nature. They do meet the 4 tests, and they do comply with the overall trend of new development within the area. So with that, I submit it back to you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Gully?
Sure, I just wanted to get some confirmation. Planning finally agreed with your 37.7, and really on the basis that the massing of the structure was no longer an issue for them. Is that correct?
Curtis? Oh, we've lost Thomas. Take over.
Yes, so sorry, I was not able to unmute myself. Yes, so planning is satisfied that the massing is no longer a concern due to the reductions that we did make with, revising and working with them.
And also, with respect to any movement of water, rainfall, flows downhill, can flow to adjacent neighbors. As part of your building permit, you would be required to submit a site grading plan and get approval to that before you get a building permit. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. Every application we file for our custom homes gets a proposed grading plan designed by a qualified engineering professional. Everything is done with proper swale drainage, and the water flow is studied very intensely and directed wherever possible to not impact neighbors, and that's one of the stipulations in the standard operating procedure of that profession.
And one last point, the speaker was very comprehensive in covering all the points, and they were all valid points. So the last point I wanted to make was to ask you confirmation as far as urban forestry is concerned. You've already just had discussions with them. You've provided an arborist report. You're prepared to accept condition 1 of urban forestry. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we have prepared a full arborist report, and we will be making the necessary applications and going through the necessary steps, and that will all be adhered to on site during construction. The hoarding will maintain on site, and the tree protection measures will be closely watched.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, could I turn your mind to the neighboring property, number 40? Could you tell us, if you know, what the lot coverage and gross floor area of that building is?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have not completed a detailed calculation on that structure. I do note that we are slightly longer than them. However, our facade matches their setback in terms of the distance from the street. But no, unfortunately, I did not create a detailed calculation on that neighboring structure.
Given your expertise in this business, have you looked at that property at number 40? Or could you take a look at it on Google View and just give us your estimation as to the relative massing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I can do that immediately. So that one is a newer construction. It is 2 stories. It has a similar mass of our structure in terms of its roof shape, etc. The footprint is relatively similar to ours, like I said, but we are slightly longer in terms of depth. I think overall the impact on the neighborhood, if I were to assess it from both our structure and their structure, it would be almost identical in that the 2-story and the roof shape is identical in design and architectural shape. We are slightly more modern in design than they are. But other than that, it is a very similar structure to ours proposed.
So it wouldn't be glaringly different. It would be similar in terms of massing. The impression one gets driving by would be those 2 houses are similar in terms of massing.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I think the way that the house is designed is almost identical to the house that we have designed in terms of the overall shape. Again, ours have been slightly more modern in the shape of the windows, things like that.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Agent, the neighbor picked up on a point of the trees that have already been removed, and I believe referenced 2 additional private trees. Can you confirm that no additional trees will be removed? You have mentioned some hoarding in TPZ zones, but can you confirm that no additional trees are going to be taken away?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to answer committee's question, no additional vegetation will be removed from the site other than that indicated on the plan. Everything that is hoarded will be protected and nothing further will be removed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for staff. Do we know the letter of objection that came in from number 44? Do we have a date on that? No, but they signed a form letter of support on the 18th, and I'm just wondering whether the objection came in before or after. But there's probably no way to tell.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I could try and request that the owner recall if there was any discussion on that, whether or not they signed something prior to signing what they submitted to us.
We received an email from the homeowner on June 19th.
19th, so it was after, okay.
General inbox.
Okay, so I'm just going to take that as their position is opposed to this application. Okay, any other questions? If not, let's take it into committee.
If everyone's okay, I'm prepared to table a motion for consideration.
Sure, unless anyone wants to do any discussion before. Or
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm just saying, my only 2 cents is that this appears to me to be one of these borderline ones, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Well, that's my sentiment exactly. It's, I think you heard my concern reflected in the question that I asked of the agent, but I'm satisfied. I was particularly sensitive to the house right next door because in terms of relative massing, I think that's important. Are we allowing something here that's extraordinarily out of scale with what's already there? And I just took a very close look at the front elevation, which has the most dramatic impact on massing from a drive-by perspective. And I'm satisfied that this proposed house is in keeping with number 40 and some of the other new builds on the street. I appreciate that some houses have been built, as pointed out by the neighbor, that did not require variances, but I don't think what's being requested here introduces a building that's at a scale with the neighborhood. So I'm going to move approval subject to urban forestry condition 1. I'm satisfied the application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Is there a seconder?
Chair, I'm going to second that.
Thank you, Mr. Gawley. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, it passes on a 4-1. The application is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Oops, wrong one. Okay, so our next item, we're now getting into the items that have been previously deferred. The first item is 13, A, B, and C. This is 5 Dodington Road. It's an application to obtain consent to sever the lot into 2 undersized residential lots. There's also the adjacent requests for the resulting variances, as the 2 lots severed would be to construct 2 new detached dwellings with attached garages, and there would be 15 variances required in the first case and 14 variances required in the second case. Let me just get to my... Costa Derbish, and I have in person, please.
Sure, I wonder if I can ask a question of staff.
Oh, actually, before we even get to that, let me just, I forgot to get into the staff reports. Planning is recommending refusal, and forestry is recommending condition 1. Sorry, go ahead, Dom.
Chair, I just had a question. Did we get a report from development engineering?
So we're to assume it would be the same.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, yeah, we would assume that there would be the usual conditions of severance required. Given that you have a negative report from planning, I guess you need to plead your case. Go ahead.
Begin? Yeah. So, yeah, my name is Costa Derbish. I'm a registered professional planner with KFA Architects and Planning. I'm located at 197 Spadina Avenue in Toronto. And I have a presentation if committee would like to hear that. Mm-hmm. Right. Do you need to put it up on the screen? Or? It was, yes. Paul should have uploaded it. No, in addition to the justification, there's a presentation. No. That's my rationale there. I can go forward with the presentation without the visuals and just speak to the drawing set.
Yeah, I don't see it as part of our package.
I do have it confirmed by...
Yeah, I have it here. For a few of them, actually, it wasn't posted.
It wasn't posted to the AIQ?
The last one was that I have is March 18th.
There would have been one more recently sent to Paul Poslovich.
Yeah, there's no previous materials listed either.
That sounds right.
So if we get that posted, just so that the applicant understands, the committee will be seeing that for the first time.
Right. There had been previous presentations that were sent, so they're not so much out of character with the current. There are some additional points I'm bringing up, but yeah, I believe I sent Paul Poslovich, and I got confirmation last week that it was going to be posted. So I'm okay to move forward. I don't think it's detrimental
It's up to you.
fully, as long as committee's kind of willing to work with the applicant.
If they could show it to us, we'll look at it.
Okay.
We can share with you the recommendations. You're aware of the conditions in the engineering
Yes.
report? Are you okay with the conditions in the report?
In general, yes. Yeah. Mm. I'm okay with the conditions, yeah. You're a specific person?
No, you're saying in general.
I'm okay with the conditions.
So I'm going to send it to Olivia. You can put some, so we can see it. Because the committee hasn't had the benefit of reviewing the conditions, we'll have staff, or if you're not comfortable with it, if we want to postpone and defer it, so that we can actually get the package before us. An oversight from the consolidation of the agenda package, sorry.
I don't know how everybody else feels about that. I mean, I'm okay to look at it, but we're not going to have as much time as we would normally because we wouldn't have a chance to read it ahead of time.
The one addition in the presentation was kind of a citing of a recently approved severance on Wincott Avenue, which is 2 streets south of the subject land. So I'm sure the committee's aware of that application.
But we don't have a chance to compare that to yours other than what we're going to get right now, which is, do we want to hold this one down? We'll do another one and you guys get your stuff together in the meantime? Okay, how do people feel about this? Do you want to defer it? Do you want to go forward?
Is it something that we can read? Is it a 1 page or 2 or? Yeah, I'm prepared to look at it. We're here now.
Okay, so this is this is the updated staff memo. This isn't the presentation wasn't in the package. Or this.
And what's the date of this report from staff? This is development engineering.
This was last week.
May 12th.
Yeah. No, that's not the most recent staff report. Yep, there was one last week that was submitted without the applicant's knowledge.
You know, to be quite honest, given that you're dealing with a negative staff report, it's probably in your interest to give us some additional time to try to convince us in the alternative, unless you're okay with potentially getting a refusal and doing the appeal.
What I would say is that the staff report hasn't changed from the previous staff reports.
We understand that, but
Right.
we don't have the benefit of your material to review ahead of time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, my client's here and we're really hoping to push forward since this has been dragged on quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is there an option to present and then based on the deferral has to be made immediately? Like, right.
If we're going to defer, we do it now. We're not going to get you to present and then decide to defer.
Is it all right if I speak with my client?
Absolutely. That's why I'm saying let's do item 14 and then you guys can come back and you can sort this out in the meantime.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, I was going to ask to have 14 done at the end, but we're still waiting for some feedback on item 16 as well. You have it?
Transportation services is,
Okay, before we get into that, I want to change up the order a little bit. We're going to come back to 13. Let's hold off on 14. 15's been deferred. Since we have an answer on 16, can we deal with 16 next then, if everyone's okay with that? Okay, so item 16, 3265 Bloor Street West. This is an application to construct a 3-story side addition, a 3-story front addition, and a 3rd-story addition above the existing building. There are 6 variances being requested. Transportation had a multitude of conditions of approval, which we're going to talk about. Ravine and Forestry Natural Protection is requesting forestry condition 1. Hold on. Okay, you're obviously not Bruce Stratton. Okay. Joanne Ho? Okay, hold on a sec. Let me just get the feedback from staff on.
So, transportation services, is standing with the recommendations. The recommendations haven't changed.
Okay.
So that's what's before the
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just so we can, is the applicant aware of?
I informed them that, we were confirming that the, conditions for transportation was consistent, and I did receive confirmation that they are standing pat.
Okay, because that's a lot of conditions. We're not used to seeing that, so we just want to make sure the transportation really is requesting that. Okay, having said all of that, the floor is yours if you can give us a brief presentation. And then we'll get into what you think of the transportation conditions that are being requested.
Is it on now? Okay.
Yeah.
My name's Joanne Ho with G. Bruce Stratton Architects. Our address is 225 Richmond Street West. We are representing the owners of 3265 Bloor. So essentially, we'll briefly go through the variances, but I believe they're pretty straightforward, just variances themselves. The first one has to do with FSI. We are actually under the FSI, and the proposed development is has to abide to TRCA policy due to flood risk. And therefore, there is a maximum area that we can develop, so we are at that maximum. That's why we're unable to meet the requirement per the bylaw. And then for item 2, has to do with the front yard setback. There's a minimum of 0 and maximum of 3 meters. The proposed is 7.41. We are providing an improvement to the existing, which is 9.22, so we are closer to the street. But we're also trying to maintain some space for parking. It is a very small site, so that's item 2. And then on item 3, it's a parking variance. There is a minimum number of parking of 14 based on the area of the building, and we will be providing 6, and that's mostly because of the size of the property again. And there are actually a number of alternatives to on-site parking, as transportation had noted. It's a parking lot right across the street with 69 spots. There's metered parking right outside the building next to ours, and there is public transit very close by. So we believe that there are plenty of options for accessing the site. And we've maximized where we can put the parking spots on the property. Okay, so variance number 4 has to do with where there is a laneway or flanking street. We're supposed to have access from that street. And so the condition on the site, if you've seen the site plan, is that the laneway is accessible only by a driveway that's next to our property. That driveway is part of TRCA lands, and the laneway actually does not have access. It's not a through laneway to Gardenvale Road, which is to the west of the property. So essentially, it's only used to access parking for the adjacent building at the back. So there's no way to get to that laneway without entering from Bloor.
Yep.
And also, the access to the front parking area, there are existing entrances. We're not making any new curb cuts. And then variance 5, again, front parking is an existing condition to be maintained, so there aren't a lot of options for parking spaces. So maintaining that. And then the last variance has to do with the requirement for loading. As I've said before, the site is so small, so our proposal is to double up on the parking and the loading space with the arrangement to have loading activities to occur only during off hours by the owner. And I guess in the end, just wanted to review the conveyances that are requested by transportation. So in the front, basically there's a bridge right next to the property. So if the city were to widen the road, they would have to take down trees and impact on the creek, Mimico Creek, in order to widen the street. Otherwise, it'll be a bottleneck once it gets to the bridge. So we find that perhaps unlikely to happen. And as for the rear, there are a number of trees along the rear property line. So again, they have to cut down more city-protected trees to achieve that widening, and the laneway doesn't go anywhere. Overall, it's just a very time and cost prohibitive endeavor for the owner to have to take on for conveyances widening that essentially might not happen in the future. So we would like to ask committee to please consider not including those requirements as part of this.
Okay, I'm going to get you to stop your presentation, but I want to come back to the transportation report. I mean, that's really our main issue as well.
Right.
Which is why we wanted to get clarification before we did this item. Just before we go there, I just want to confirm that there are no other speakers for this item.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So transportation has requested quite a list of conditions. If you could perhaps let us know which conditions you're okay with and which ones are of concern.
I assume this pertains to the land conveyances conditions because on the variances themselves, they have no objections.
Okay, so they have a total of 13 conditions. Can you tell me which, if any of those, are acceptable to you?
I think all the ones that have to do with the owner paying for surveys and
Environmental, yeah.
Legal.
Yeah.
We've already spent well over $30,000 just to get to this point. And so those are the ones that I know she is.
Could I ask you to step up to the microphone and
Sure.
introduce
Sorry,
yourself?
Bruce Stratton, 225 Richmond Street West, 3rd floor in Toronto.
He was on the original speaker on
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So what we're struggling with is what do we impose and what we don't impose.
Right.
So if you could make that clearer for us, it would be helpful.
I mean, we don't mind doing plans. We can do those. Must revise the plans to show 2.5 meter wide conveyance. The plans must be revised to illustrate the 1.2 meter wide land. We don't have a problem with that. The revision date, we don't have a problem with that. The above, that's number 4. The above revision should be undertaken. No problem with that.
So you're fine with 1 through 4?
Yeah. It's just when you get into like number 7, the owner is financially responsible for all costs associated with preparing and registering the approved draft R plan. Number 8, retain a qualified person to conduct environmental assessment.
Yeah, I get that. But so you're okay from 1 through 6 then?
I believe so. Are we, John? Yeah.
No, because it's all
I believe so, yes.
To the widening, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get what your concern is.
Yeah.
So we're going to take it into committee for some discussion,
Okay.
potentially some questions.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to to get some clarity.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's take it into committee, and Dominic, it's your bailiwick.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to make some comments with respect to transportation services, development engineering conditions. All those conditions, in my view, all 13 conditions relate to the conveyance of the land. All of them, starting from number 1 all the way through 13. And I don't think you can pick and choose which condition to apply. You're going to have to apply all of them or not at all. Now, I know this has been deferred before. It was deferred May 15th. I wasn't here at that hearing, but it was deferred for further consultations. I don't know what those consultations were supposed to entail.
Yeah, maybe we can get some clarity from the applicant on that, because in the previous hearing, transportation had 7 conditions, yet it was deferred for further consultation with transportation. So can you enlighten us on what
I can certainly speak to that. So the previous hearing, we had received the transportation memo 1 week before the hearing, which notified us that these conveyances were future conveyances, and we had to change the parking layout to accommodate that because
And have you done that?
And we did that so that nothing encroaches into the future area. But because that reduced the number of parking, which affected one of the variances, we had to defer. If we had been informed of these future conveyances earlier, and that information was included in the circulation to the neighbors, then it would still be a future conveyance.
So, Chair, just even to follow up on that, I think the piece that's missing here is legal advice, perhaps from the city, and also for you to consult a municipal lawyer. We're dealing with variances here. We're dealing with consent. If this was a consent, then indeed we'd be looking at asking that right-of-way widening be part of the condition to any approval. As I indicated to staff earlier, just in a question, and they did well to contact the manager for that section, and he's saying that those conditions stand. As a member of this committee, I would again, even though I hate deferrals, because deferrals waste our time too. We've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 deferrals from the last hearing. It takes time from us, it takes time from you, it costs you money and so on to come back. But I think in this case, I believe that you need to have further conversations with Transportation Services, and also for Transportation Services to get an opinion from city solicitor to indicate whether these conditions are appropriate at this juncture. This is an application for development. It's not to create additional lot. They're asking for a widening. And I'm not sure whether a widening can be sought at this forum without being a consent. So I think I'm also advising my colleagues, this is my view. It may not be correct, but that's the way I see it in my experience, that there's further conversation required. And I think it would be to your benefit to have further conversations with planning. Now, the last time around, they only asked for 6 or 7 conditions. Now they've come back with 13. So hopefully they're not going to come back with 20 next time. I'm being justful on that point, but I think it might be wise to have further conversations with Transportation Services on these. as I said, I'm not a lawyer. I really don't know whether we can apply that condition. If staff tells us to apply, we have to weigh whether or not it's appropriate to apply that condition.
I'd like to change.
So I'll actually leave it at that and let the chair continue.
Okay, I just want to ask a question related to that summation, and that's when your zoning review, was it based on those widenings taking place? Or if we do the widenings, is that going to create more variances?
Yeah, it was never an issue, I don't believe, in the zoning review.
But when the zoning review was done, were they aware that these widenings were being requested?
No, right?
No, they were not aware, and we only found out just before the.
So we potentially could be creating the need for more variances if this is enacted.
But we've already accommodated the variance by not having anything encroaching into that area per transportation's requirement.
Sort of, but that doesn't, but then setbacks could change, and variances pertaining to setbacks could change. I don't want to get into a chicken or egg ongoing situation with this file either.
You're saying if the road widening is accepted, then the setback might be from the road widening, the new, as opposed to the old one?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. I mean, that's common when we do severance applications. But this is an unusual request for a variance application, which doesn't involve the severance, and that's what confused us initially.
I mean, our big concern is we've already lost, been delayed a month.
Understood, understood. And
The client, is a small business owner of the area, paying $10,000 a month for rent somewhere else. So construction is delayed because we can't get the building permit.
Yeah.
And what I don't understand is we do nothing on the lot, we do nothing on the property. There's no mention
I
of this.
totally get it. I'm totally sympathetic to your situation.
One other question. Why in the future, if you want to widen the road or redo the bridge, which...
They can just do it through expropriation anyway.
Why not
I
just
know.
do it?
That was going to be my next point.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my counter argument to what my colleague just had to say, is that even if we don't impose these conditions and we go forward with this, it doesn't stop the city from, at a future point, doing an expropriation, and it gets you out of this chicken or egg situation that we're currently in.
And I don't believe the owner would have any problem with that. Like,
Well,
she's
the owner
very-
wouldn't have a choice in that.
Yeah, wouldn't have a choice and wouldn't have a problem.
She wouldn't have to pay for it now.
Yeah.
Well, it's, and it's not just a question of paying for it now, it's a question of getting into this, well, do we do this first, do we do that first, and you're gonna be forever in this loop.
But for something that's highly unlikely to ever, I mean, it's a big bridge. And
Yeah, no,
you're not
listen,
seeing-
we like the application, we'd like to approve it,
Yeah.
we just don't wanna get caught in a,
Well, just one last point. The final note they just sent us is they said it is up to the committee to decide what they want to do.
no, we understand
So-
that. Because
You
that's,
can make- you can
that's
make
gonna
the
be my
decision.
next question,
Yeah.
is to staff, is what if we just approve it without any of these conditions? I mean, we can still do that,
You can do it.
right?
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that for my fellow panel members.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, we seem to trying to make a decision based on something that may or may not ever happen.
Yeah. Why spend?
We operate in the fullness of time. So it's not necessarily a road widening requirement for the paved portion between the curves. It may be for the infrastructure that's at the boulevard. There are many uses within the right-of-way other than the road. So that's why the official plan sets out right-of-way widths and dimensions that in the fullness of time, as the city evolves.
Yeah, it's for utilities, for hydro, for whatever.
Sorry?
It could be for you, a hydro line, for utilities, for, it's not necessarily that someone's gonna drive on that portion.
Or widen the sidewalk. There are many purposes
Yeah.
for a boulevard.
So what is the reason for a conveyance? Why not just go ahead and do those things if you have to do them?
Well, that was the point about the expropriation option, right?
Well, because typically, if they have a plan to widen or to enlarge a boulevard, when someone comes to us for a severance, it's implemented at that time.
But there is no plan.
Well, we don't know.
Well, that's back to my point. We're trying to word this in a way based on something that may or may not happen.
Exactly. Okay, anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. I think we're in committee at this point unless we have any other questions for the applicants.
No.
No, okay. So that, fellow members, is our dilemma. We have transportation with a multitude of conditions which may or may not affect the variances even more. If there's any more discussion needed, let's do it. If not, if someone's ready for a motion.
So Chair, I just wanted to add a comment, and perhaps as a follow-up to what staff advised us. The city does have an official plan, and within that official plan too, it incorporates a schedule that has the minimum right-of-way requirements for all public road lands in the city of Toronto. So Bloor Street, and now I'm going by memory, Bloor Street probably has a right-of-way requirement of 36 meters.
At least.
That's basic. So that 36 meter is not being met at in this
In
section.
that point, okay.
So the way you accumulate the width throughout the length of a road is to ask for these widenings through time. It may take 10 years to get that from, say, going from 27 meters to 36 meters and evenly on either side of the road. If the center line is on the center of the original 66-foot road allowance, 20-meter road allowance, 66 feet road allowance, 20-meter road allowance. So there's no question that the city should be getting this right-of-way width. They should be getting the widening. My struggle with this is it a condition that the committee can impose? That's the struggle that I'm having.
I think we can impose it. It's not common for us to impose it on a variance application. It's typically done on a severance application. And that's our concern. I mean, we had an application across the street for, multi-story development where the car dealership used to be, and I don't recall there being a dedication part of that. But again, I'm just going by memory. Right, so it's just, it kind of created a red flag for us because we don't typically see this on a variance application.
I have a question for my colleagues or perhaps staff, anyone that wants to comment. If the conditions are not imposed, does that tie the hands of transportation in any other way? Thinking of expropriation as an option, is that free hands to take the expropriation option, or do we limit them by not imposing these conditions?
I don't know how to answer that. There's no time frame. The city always has the ability
To expropriate, yeah.
I guess the question is, and I'm not a lawyer either, what authority is behind that grant under section 45 to the city, this committee,
To be clear, there's no legal advice being discussed at all.
You were here, adjudicate over an application under section 45 of the plan. Not 51, not 53, and not 40, which is site plan. This is, and the opposite side of that coin would be, is there anything to preclude you under section 45 of the planning act to impose this? So there's both sides of the coin.
Yeah, my concern, Phil, is that we have before us an application that was reviewed by a zoning examiner based on no conveyance to the city for the road widening. Now we impose a condition that puts in place a conveyance. Does that change the variances? And whose responsibility then is it going to be to have to come back here? And, you know, I think that's unfair to the applicant.
Yeah, so.
Well, there's a security place, right? If the committee chooses to impose the conditions, they have to satisfy the conditions to implement the variances. So this road widening would have to be done, the clean soil has to be reviewed. All that has to be done prior to these variances being enforced in that. So that line will be there prior to a building permit, the new front wall.
No, understood, but
So, we are not zoning examiners, we can't give you instructions on what the zoning bylaw says. They will have to determine that themselves, either at the building permit stage, or if they want to go in advance, they can do, amendment to their zoning review. But at this point, there's nothing staff can do to alleviate their concern regarding creating a variance.
I understand. That's why I expressed that concern, and that's why I question whether it's appropriate to impose these conditions at this time. But that's just my opinion. It's everybody else's opinion that needs to be taken into account on the vote.
Can I just ask one more question?
Well, okay, normally no, but okay.
Had we done nothing on the property, there would be no talk about this whatsoever.
No, it would come up sooner or later.
It would come up if the city wanted to do something.
But that doesn't help us in resolving our current situation.
I'll,
Okay.
If this proposal is subject to site plan approval, there are steps in authority to
Yeah.
and it is it's commercial expansion.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
from what I saw in your zoning codes, you didn't trigger site plan.
No, it's small.
It's too small of a development. Yeah. I mean, it's also bordering on, you know, environmentally sensitive land. So there's some, anyway. We need to move forward with this. So everyone's heard my opinion. If you have another opinion, please voice it now or forever hold your peace. We got to vote.
I'm gonna, before I hold my peace, I gotta ask a question. This mysteriously has gone in 5.5 weeks from, please assure us that you don't have any parking spaces within 2.35 meters and give us 2.3. I don't know what happened. I'm not gonna even, I don't wanna think about it, I get a headache. However, can you assure transportation that there will not be any parking spaces within 2.35 meters of the property along Bloor Street West frontage of the subject site?
We did revise the site plan to remove all parking within that conveyance area in response to their initial comment of the future conveyance. So in that respect, there is nothing encroaching in that area.
So if we tie you to site plan, you'd be conforming to that.
Yeah, we'll conform to the
And
drawing that was
a future, say, expropriation wouldn't be adversely impacted by a decision to approve this?
No.
Because you freed up the 2.3.
We've already complied with that.
I mean, that's a potential alternate. Setback might not comply, but if it's done through expropriation rather than conveyance, it won't matter. Anyone else? Nope. Okay.
So there doesn't appear to be a downside to approving it without the conditions.
I think there potentially is, but I think we have a alternate condition that could be imposed. The alternate condition would be to construct as per site plan.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Tied to site planners.
Yeah. Anyway, is anyone ready for a motion? Because if not, I'd like to propose one.
I will.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat a lot of our conversation to complicate. I'm just going to get to the essence here, as far as I'm concerned. We're concerned that we don't know the legitimate authority of the city to request I'll call it an expropriation or a conveyance as a condition of a decision on a minor variance. My view is we kind of disregard that. We look at this on its merits. Do we like this project? Are the variances minor and in keeping with the OP and the zoning bylaw? Is it reasonable and appropriate development? I say it is. And my motion is that we approve this application without transportation review conditions of approval, recognizing that it may choose to appeal our decision.
Yeah, that's another risk you take.
That's really the nut of this as far as if they don't like what we're about to do, they can appeal it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So I'm going to move approval without any transportation conditions, subject only to ravine and natural features protection condition number 1.
Do you want to tie it to site plan or no?
Oh, and yes, approval subject to completion of the project in accordance with the site plan submitted with the application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Is there a seconder for that motion? Mr. Ross, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved on a 4-1 decision.
Thank you, committee members.
We can do a brief break. Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we can reassess where we're at with the ones that we're trying to figure out. Okay.
Brilliant. Not the account. Yeah, exactly. Have they received our latest version?
Whatever what's in their package.
As I say.
So I can show you what they received. But I think in fairness, we can
Sorry, I just want to.
So this
I was trying to help it.
We just,
Gave you both sides of the same.
I think we knew where we wanted to go with
submitted
that.
to.
It was just a question of, yeah, and some justification of why.
Planning rationale.
There's
Planning
an
justification for number 2.
Yeah. They could have.
Test it.
Two would probably be next
So they would have reviewed that.
So the only thing is that they don't have the code is that severance has been approved in November, that it's not in this kind
That was severance.
I have the presentation here. I'm fine to put it on the screen, but really just, they don't want to.
So it's online, but not, would you be able to provide? It's online, but not in the packet on the spot. So there's a lot of steps, and that step on that application, it would just be accessible. So any human error happens quite a bit.
There's been a fair bit lately.
I know. Obviously, if they were to have that information part of the presentation, they would be doing that due diligence on it. And they would have reviewed the architectural drawings.
And this is like critical.
Yes, among others.
So if you can bring up.
This is your presentation.
That's not critical.
So this is what you want.
We're going to refuse.
Yes, and the critical piece.
So, 3 to go. So it's a
It
question.
was the one before, so if you go back.
We'll do 17.
Back.
17 should be.
And then we'll,
Whether I put this page or the whole presentation, it's either the presentation goes or the.
What's this guy?
Yeah, this is the best way to, for sure, but my question
So you're
is,
saying we
you would
have
have
to
a
wait
way
or
to
what?
set on the one time copy for the business application, so. I'm gonna
It's
come
not-
up and say, it is a critical piece, so my question is, if we bring out the presentation, and we speak to this, are you gonna be able to bring up if required? Set coming out that speaks to.
No, I won't. I will only be able to bring up.
or
You
13.
can speak to it. Absolutely. Like you can. What you say in your presentation has a meaning too, like whether it's a full screen or not, right? Let me ask this.
Thanks.
He thinks he's gonna go right now. That's
So,
what
the presentation was put on AIC.
Phil just looks fine.
Oh, okay.
But it never got sent to us.
Can I put this on the screen? Is that okay? Okay.
Because it was properly posted.
It
just
was.
didn't-
He did his thing, so this is important information.
Yeah,
And
and I just wanted to give him that choice,
Yeah.
even though we didn't have a leisurely time to review it. We're only
Exactly.
going to see it this
Okay,
now.
I'll put it on.
If he's okay with that, we'll do it.
Okay. You hear that? So I'm gonna put the presentation up for you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to just skip to this page? Or do you want
No, the whole presentation, if you please, thanks.
Okay, while you're doing that.
That's okay. We're still on the third. Or you want to continue?
No, I was hoping Rick was here so we could continue.
Oh, you want to continue?
I thought we could do item 17 while we're getting all this together. 'cause
Yeah,
it's-
yeah.
Go around. When did we say?
We said 5 minutes, so.
There he comes.
Okay, so let's come back. Let's do item 17, then we'll come back to 13 and 14. So item 17 is 26 Yorkview Drive. This is an application to maintain the existing dwelling, rear yard deck, and site conditions. There are 7 variances being requested. Forester is requesting conditions 1 and 2 in the event of approval. There are no other staff comments. We have Alexander Overholt as the agent online.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and fellow panel members. Alexander Overholt here, speaking for Contempla Studio, located at 1140 the Queensway in Etobicoke.
Good afternoon, sir. I don't think we need a full presentation here. I would like one question answered, and then perhaps if members have others, if you're okay with that.
Not a problem. Happy to facilitate.
So my only question is, how did we come to be? Because I do not have a record of an order to comply. So can you please explain how we got here?
I'll explain to the best of my understanding and what has been relayed to me. So there was, looking at the history of the project, I mean, we had a committee of adjustment application back in 2019, which approved a series of variances, one of them being an increased FSI of 0.65. Since that approval, a building permit was generated and issued. It is my understanding that slight deviations on site occurred under the direction of the homeowner and the builder. Slight changes being in larger rear deck, a very slight change to the front elevation, and an increased width of the front driveway. And underneath that rear deck, alongside the right side of the rear, additional basement excavated space was added, which increases the lot coverage. This is pretty much all I have been
Okay,
relayed.
that doesn't explain the FSI differential, and, you know,
Right.
had
So-
they had that approved before, it wouldn't be before us now.
My understanding is, so back in 2019, an FSI variance of 0.65 was approved. Due to the front projection of the front elevation on the first floor being slightly different than the approved building permit, it increased the GFA slightly larger to 0.68. Myself and the zoning examiner went back and forth actually trying to understand. And after doing a side-by-side analysis through, Google Meets videos, we finally realized the slight discrepancy and changes in the building envelope. It's my understanding that the inspections for like framing and mechanical and reference foundations all went smoothly. It was only until the client decided to excavate underneath the enlarged rear deck where the final inspection has yet to be approved, which has triggered our firm being notified of these changes, which now leads to us being in this hearing.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from anyone else, from other panel members? No? Thomas, we have no other speakers for this item?
No, that's correct.
Okay, let's take it into committee then. Any discussion? Oh, don't race for it.
You waiting for me?
Well,
Unless anybody.
whichever one of you wants to go ahead, Don, thanks.
Unless anybody wishes to present any thoughts on this, I'm prepared to table a motion.
Go ahead, Don.
Good. I'm satisfied that this application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. The variances are all quite minor in my view and meet the other tests under the Planning Act. So I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Dominic?
Second, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gully. All in favor? Okay, unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Overholt.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and long weekend.
Thanks. Okay, so let's come back to item 13, now that we've got the information straightened out. So staff, if you could share with us the information that was not originally forwarded to us, but was apparently online. And I'll get, what have we got here? Mr. Dervish to do the presentation.
Thank you. All right, so, okay, so let's get started. So, yes, so here to present today our application at the Committee of Adjustment for 1 severance application and 2 minor variance applications at 5 Dodington Drive in the City of Toronto. So let's just go to the next slide. Just some quick statistics. The lot area currently stands at 620 square meters. There's a existing frontage of 15.24 meters. Depth of the lot is 40.74 meters. Designation in the official plan of neighborhoods, residential detached in the zoning bylaw 569/2013, and currently occupied by a two-story detached mid-century dwelling. Just one thing to note about it is that there was a fire on the property in 2021, and currently, the structure is in disrepair and no one's living in the property. So that's kind of the impetus here to the application to provide some movement and evolution of the build form on the property. So on to the next slide. It's just an existing shot of the mid-century kind of two-story dwelling. It takes up almost the totality of the width of the lot, well set back. And you can see the kind of integrated garage to the right there. And the next slide speaks to the requested variances, the requested severance. You see there are parts 1 and 2 in front of you. The frontages are 7.62 each. They're equidistant, and the depth is obviously the same, 40.74 meters. The next slide will speak to the kind of general stats of what it is we're requesting here. Essentially, it's a pretty cut and dry land severance, and both parts will be completely identical here. So just to provide some context to the committee as to how we got here, there was a first hearing date scheduled back in October the 24th in 2024. A deferral was requested on behalf of the applicant to better meet urban forestry needs, which then applied condition number 5 relative to the existing street tree. That was one of the major, impetus there to improve that portion of the application, and that's one of the kind of major components of the project that had been revised subsequently. In the kind of intervening time between then and now, we've worked directly and worked very well with transportation staff and urban forestry to give their go ahead with what our proposal is, which was a mutual driveway that was moved out of the tree protection zone. So that tree will now be salvaged, and it's a healthy tree. So it should add to the proposal, and we're happy to see that being retained as part of the proposal. In terms of the next slide, and city staff and feedback, I've just touched on urban forestry and engineering and transportation. In terms of the community planning, there was an initial back and forth between myself and the planner on the file, and it was the city's position that, based on the fact that they felt the build form was not of the prevailing character of the neighborhood, and that a severance was not part of the prevailing character, they could not give support to our application. I then elevated the discussion to the senior planner on the file, and we kind of received a response from staff, which was basically saying that, you've had back and forth with your representatives at community planning. There's not much more to talk about. We're not supportive of the severance, and it is what it is. And that was after, quite a few back and forths with phone calls, emails, and so I took that as the applicant as well. I don't agree with that in terms of my professional planning opinion. I do think, a severance on this lot can be a thoughtful application, and communicated that to the client, and we decided to move forward. So as part of the last deferral, we did do some community engagement, which was a condition. A lot of the community was actually supportive. Not all of them would go on record. I don't understand there are any letters of objection. We did receive 2 letters of support.
2 letters of support. I'm going to get you to wrap up as well.
Yeah. So the next few slides are just the site plan and elevations, which I'm sure you've reviewed in detail. And then we talk about the precedence of the area, which speaks to side yard setback, the kind of the salient, I think,
You know what,
variances.
I'm gonna cut you off, and my first question was gonna be, give us examples in the area, so I'll let you do it that way.
So I think, so there, I've subdivided them into three categories as salient kind of issues to the variance that would be relative to the severance. So the first one would be side yard setbacks, and we have actually many examples in the area that my planning letter
You might want to focus on
does speak to.
the lot size and frontage.
Lot size and frontage. Okay, yep, sure. So on slide 7, and this is kind of the critical piece here, is that there are in the letter we do highlight kind of quite a number of lot frontages on within the surrounding neighborhood that are within that 7.62 width that we are proposing, many of which are on Wincott Avenue. And I think highlighting this most recently approved application, given that it is so close to our proposal, is something we want to spend our time on. So essentially, it's an identical severance in terms of lot frontage. It has lower lot areas than we do. So we have a larger lot that we're severing. So identical lot frontage that's been approved, lower lot area. So I think that's a critical piece of information that we wanted the committee to take in and refer to when we're talking about the precedents and lot area and frontage.
Is that the only one in the area?
It is not.
Can you just give us a list of the properties and then we can check them on Google?
Sure. Do you mind if I just grab some of the materials that have the list? I think it's 35 Wincott.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, sure.
William, we don't have, sorry, I did it again. Thomas, we don't have any other speakers for this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. That's because the thing's abandoned. Yeah. Okay, does anyone, while we're waiting, okay.
So we have 35 Wincott has an existing lot frontage of 7.6 meters. Obviously, the proposed is the approved at 110 is 7.62. 33 Wincott is 6.35 meters. 35 7.62. 43 is 7.78. 45 is 7.62 lot frontage. So there's a few more as well. So there is a trend of.
Thank you. What would have been helpful is a map showing those within the immediate context.
Right. If you refer to the planning rationale, there is some discourse there about frontages and side yard setbacks that have been included.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks. Are there any other questions from committee members?
Do you have what percentage of the properties in the area are at 7.62?
Well, that would require delineating the area that we're talking about. There are, I would say it's the emerging trend, and that as development occurs, that's what we're seeing going forward. I would say it's in the minority, but it's not in the extreme minority, I would say. So I don't think it's out of keeping with.
Does minority mean 10%, 20%?
I would say minimum 10%. No.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you. We're going to take it into committee.
Sure. Here for any questions if anyone has.
Any discussion?
Well, I'm more concerned about immediate context precedents rather than the broader neighborhood. I don't see that Winiska is really relevant to our consideration here today in terms of the compatibility of these buildings on these lots. I've just looked up and down the full length and width of Dodington Avenue. I don't see anything like what's being proposed here. They're all wide lots with two-story single detached dwellings. So my strong inclination is to accept the planning report on this that's really based on inappropriate lot sizes and configuration, building heights, massing, scale, and dwelling types. So, yeah, I won't be inclined to support a motion other than to refuse, or I'd be prepared to make a motion to refuse.
Okay. We're in committee now, so we're kind of done with questions.
Sorry, Chair, I thought comments were being made. I did have a question of the speakers. Sorry about that.
Yeah. That's why I asked.
Oh, again, I'm technologically challenged trying to get to the right page here. What's to the east of your of number 15 Foch? What type of building?
Of 5 Dodington, what is to the east is...
Is it semi? Is it a semi?
It's a single, I believe.
It's single?
Yeah. I have to confirm that. I have to look at the site plan.
We're dealing with Dodington.
Is it a semi or a single?
God, hold on a second. We're dealing with Dodington.
Yeah.
Sorry for bouncing it all over.
I withdraw the need for question, Chair.
Thank you. It's a little late now, and I've given him more than his allotted time. Okay, sorry. That's why I asked earlier if there's any other speakers, but anyway. Sorry, Don, do you want to come back to where you were? We're back in committee.
Sure. I'll table a motion? Okay. I won't repeat everything that I said, but I generally am supportive of the community planning recommendation that this application be refused for the various reasons that they cited, principally inappropriate lot sizes and configuration, building heights, massing, scale, and dwelling types, which planning believes, and so do I, are inappropriate in this context. So I move refusal.
Thank you, Don. Okay. We have a motion on the table, but Don, do you want to momentarily withdraw that motion? I think Don has a question. Okay.
You're asking me to withdraw my motion?
Just
Temporarily.
temporarily.
I temporarily withdraw my motion.
Okay, Dominic, do you have a question or clarification?
Just bear with me. Chair, if you would just bear with me just for one moment.
Are you trying to get back to the agenda? Here, use mine, because I think you've lost it.
Okay.
So these are the variances. Yeah. And then the severance is up top, right?
Yeah.
Are we waiting for Dominic?
In the meantime, does anyone else have any questions since we've withdrawn the motion? No. That was one of our issues, there weren't any, yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Don, would you like to reinstate your motion?
Can I merely say I hereby reinstate my motion?
Please. Is there a seconder to Mr. Taylor's motion to refuse?
I'm inclined to second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Popovic. All in favor of the refusal? Opposed? Sorry, which way are you, Rick? Are you opposed or in favor?
I'm in favor of refusing.
Okay. Dom?
No, I'm not voting on that.
You're not voting on that, okay. All right, so the application is refused. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we can now move to item 14. And Mr. Gully, I believe we're going to say au revoir to you now, since you have a conflict on that item. Regarding 14? Sure.
This is 14?
Yeah.
I'd like to, I'd be in favor of seeing that, even though it's late from the counselor.
Maybe sure, if you want to, go ahead. So item 14, 250 Wincott Drive, this was deferred from April 17th. This is an application to adjust the parking standards for the proposed buildings. There are 4 variances being requested. We have several previous decisions, finally with a bit of a history on that. We have 12 letters of objection. We have transportation chiming in with an okay report. And Ryan?
Yes.
Good day.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And proceed with your presentation.
Yes, I'll first just say my name's Ryan Doherty. I'm a land use planner with Bouse Fields here on behalf of the applicant. My address is 3 Church Street in Toronto. Before I get into my presentation, would it benefit the committee to provide a bit of a background as to what has occurred between the deferral and now? Otherwise, I can get straight to my presentation.
I think you should do your presentation and then we can ask you some questions.
Sure. Okay, so we did submit a presentation package. Perhaps we can just pull that up and we can go straight to slide number 3. So I'll just wait for that to be pulled up.
We're pulling it up, just the laptop's a bit slow. Oh, there it is.
No problem. We can start at slide 3, please. Thank you. So I'll start here. The site is occupied by the Richview Square Shopping Center and surrounding vacant lands. And so this site, as shown here, is within a major transit station area and is within walking distance of both the Kipling and Islington stations along the under construction Eglinton Crosstown West extension. We could go to the next slide. So just by way of background for the committee, this site is being developed in multiple phases. A rezoning application was previously approved in 2021, allowing for the redevelopment of 3 new buildings. Those are A, B, and C, in addition to the retention of the existing commercial plaza, Building D. The application before you today pertains specifically to Buildings C and D, which represent phases 1 and 2 of the development. Illustrated here is a plan showing the Building C and D phase of the development.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
Just to clarify, it's one developer that's dealing with the entire project, though, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Just doing it in phases.
In phases, that's correct.
including the existing shopping.
Yes, that's part of the phase 1 and 2.
All right, thanks.
No problem. So if we could go to the next slide, and again, this is just to illustrate the ultimate condition of the site for the benefit of the committee. So this is phase 3, which includes buildings A and B. In January of 2023, a new rezoning application was filed to increase the permitted height and density of buildings A and B. The new rezoning application has been scoped to only pertain to buildings A and B and does not include C and D. So the built form and standards for C and D are advancing under the previous bylaw. While more substantive changes for A and B are going through a more formal rezoning process. So to that point, buildings C and D have advanced considerably under the existing zoning and subsequent minor variance approvals through a 3-year site plan approval process submitted in April 2022. And we're now at the point where my client is looking to proceed with construction. We can go to the next slide. Again, just by way of background, there is a significant affordable housing component for this project. There's 101 affordable housing units across the site. 74 are allocated to Building C, and Building C is planned to receive funding under a recent city agreement with the federal government. So we can skip 2 slides ahead to go to the requested variances. So we are requesting a total of 4 variances from the bylaw. Variance 5, which was previously requested, has since been removed. We can go to the next page. And so with respect to the accessible parking variance, the proposed variance would allow buildings C and D to provide accessible parking in accordance with the city's latest standards. The previous city standard requires a width of 3.9 meters per space, whereas the city's current standard, which is under appeal, requires 3.4. Spaces would also now be required to provide an additional 1.5 meter barrier-free aisle or path. We could go to the next slide. For loading, a variance is required to reduce the number of loading spaces within Building C from 4 to 2. The change is required given that the programming of the non-residential component within Building C has changed over the course of the site plan approval process. And I'll note that the committee had previously approved a variance for 2 loading spaces within Building C back in 2022. I do just want to correct something on this slide. So the previous approval was for 1 type A and 1 type G space, and what's proposed is 1 type B and 1 type G space. So I apologize for the mix-up on this slide. We can go to the next page. So for vehicle parking, the variances would secure lower rates for resident and visitor parking for Building C. The rates would result in the provision of 159 resident and 20 visitor spaces. In addition to the requirement for 14 non-residential spaces, that would be an overall requirement of 193 parking spaces in Building C. These rates would be in accordance with the city's new parking standards, which would only require 20 visitor parking spaces. And so it is important to recognize that there are billions of public dollars being spent on higher order transit within walking distance of the site, and there is policy direction in the official plan that speaks to minimizing the use of the car and supporting alternative forms of transportation. This application seeks to provide an appropriate balance between this objective while still ensuring that a supply of parking is met on the site. I'll conclude by saying we have spent years working with city staff on the SPA application for this phase. Transportation Services staff have issued a report indicating no objections or conditions with respect to the variances, and I would respectfully urge the committee to consider the technical expertise of staff in this matter. I can't speak to the new letter filed by the councillor last night, as I have not seen it. However, I can speak to the previous letter filed by the councillor, which did have some conditions. And I'll just conclude by saying we are not in support of those conditions as they pertain to building setbacks, in some cases for buildings that are not subject to this application. And we don't think that they would be appropriate for the committee to consider in this case. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Before you go, just a few questions.
Sure.
Do you have any examples within Etobicoke of the same parking ratios that you're proposing right now that exist currently?
I can speak to a site that just went to community council in Etobicoke on June 5th that was approved with 0 parking and a minimum requirement for 29 visitor parking spaces. That's 13 to 21 John Street. That's a site that I've just worked on. We do have other examples as well,
How many housing units?
approximately 500.
Okay, John Street, what's the main intersection?
That's at the Weston and Lawrence area.
Okay. Okay.
We do have other examples as well. So we do have Catalina Moyano from BA Group, who is our transportation consultant. She can speak to that, if that would help.
Yeah, that would help.
I just want to ask you, talking about parking, is there any bicycle parking at all in this area?
Yes, so the proposal, all phases would comply with the bylaw in terms of bicycle parking. So I don't have the exact number in front of me, but there's going to be hundreds of bicycle parking
Okay,
spaces.
maybe we'll hold off till after the other deputants come back to the stacks.
Sure.
My other question is, the current commercial plaza, how many parking spaces are there now?
There are, in terms of the existing commercial plaza,
Yeah.
there's over 200 spaces.
And how many will there be at the end of the development?
In the ultimate condition, there'll be 154 surface parking spaces.
So there will still be 154 spaces available?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And
That's in the ultimate condition.
What does that mean?
So after including buildings A and B, if we can go back to the.
Understood.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And is there any change to the retail mix?
In terms of.
Are you eliminating any of the stores? Are you adding any commercial to that plaza?
The plaza, so as part of the application, portions of the plaza are being demolished. And then there's a small addition being added to the east side of the plaza. And then the facade is being improved.
So how does that, so the gross floor area of the plaza now versus what it's going to be, what's the change?
Yeah, I can get that number for you. The existing plaza on the site is about, I believe it's just over 6,000 square meters. And what's going to be retained in the ultimate condition is about just over 4,000 square meters.
So
and
then
then
it's a substantial reduction in the retail space.
Well, there'll be new retail within Building C as well as within Buildings
Okay,
A and B as well.
So that's not a fair comparison then, because where's the parking going to be for that new retail?
For the new retail, there'll be parking, dedicated parking underneath Building C, in addition to the surface spaces as well.
I see, okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Can you define the term walkable distance for me?
Walkable in terms of typically what's considered walkable is within 800 meters of a transit station. So in this case, the two closest stations would be Kipling and Islington, and they're both within 500 meters walking distance.
Okay, thanks. Let's hear from some deputants unless there's other questions for the applicant. No? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So we have some in-person deputants. Catalina,
So that was the other agent, so that was.
Okay.
So we have a Lucia. Louisa.
Louisa.
Yes. You can come up.
Come on up.
With your name, it's never close enough. It should be exact.
Ryan is taller than I am. Can you hear me? Does that work? Does that work?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, Louisa Gerardo, 84 Waterford Drive, here on behalf of the RGRA, representing the Richmond Gardens and Princess Anne communities. So we were here last April. Since then, the applicant removed one variance and did ask to meet with us, thanks to your prodding. Thank you for that, first time in many, many years. But sadly, I would say that was a check the box activity, because in that meeting, when we did ask to discuss the parking spaces, which are the not minor, major variance and concern, we were told absolutely not negotiable, not dialogable, no conversation, take it or leave it. So we decided to leave it, and here we are today. We propose, and we would say, that the variances they're asking for are not minor. They're going to say they're technical because they've tried to make them the smallest possible view of a massive redesign. They are not desirable for appropriate development of the land because it threatens the plaza and it threatens parking to go onto our streets. It undermines intended purpose of zoning bylaw. I'll get into that in a moment because this was approved in 2021 and the parking standards in 2021 apply. They're grandfathered. This also fails to maintain the spirit of the city's official plan. I'm going to back up really quickly to say that 250 Wincott is part of a massive project called 250 Wincott, 4620 Eglinton Avenue West. That development approved in 2021 had 3 mid-rises, 587 units, 521 residential parking spaces, 411 commercial and visitor parking spaces for a retail plaza and a grocery, and we allowed it on a private road. That was a deal breaker, so we said, okay, we'll budge and we'll say okay to a private road. Months after the land was transferred from Create TO, they scrapped that and came back with a massive redesign, a rezoning that has yet to go before council. Super important to consider that. The massive redesign is 2 tall and 1 mid-rise. They've doubled the units with 136 less parking spaces at least, and they're asking for an even greater reduction today. No public road for the 9,000 expected cars to go through the site, and transportation has verified that number of cars. And importantly, you asked the question, is this one developer? It is today, but they are asking for severance. They'll say that's technical, but we do know they did share their intent, and they're probably sorry they did, that they want to sever this and resell it. And the former chair of the RGRA met with them and another developer who was interested in buying at least one of those parcels if they could get 30 stories approved. This is a complex, massive rezoning, and the impact on the community is huge. This is not minor at all. I also want to say that it feels like the approach is to keep coming back here to chunk this out in the smallest possible pieces to convince you that they're all minor. In aggregate, they're major. And as much as I like you, I think we're all okay if we don't keep meeting like this. I want to say that residential parking, the established buildings offer between 1.1 and 1.4 spaces per unit. They proposed 0.86, and now they want 0.4. Unheard of. Plant World is going up right now. People at Plant World are not stupid. They know they need 0.8 per unit, and they're as close to the LRTs as this site is. They're closer. Commercial, 263 commercial retail spaces are temporary. In the final phase, there will only be 55 or 56 spaces on the north side. And if you're familiar with the plaza, the north side is actually one level down. So you have to crawl up to get to the front. And when I go out there every day and measure, there are over 100 cars parked between 10:30 and 11:30, non-peak time every day for a decimated plaza. Never mind the plaza and the additional commercial that will come through. These are not minor variances. We are asking you please to deny them and let council review the rezoning. If in fact committee approves these variances in addition to what was already approved, because without all the knowledge, you did approve going from 250 to 370 units in Building C. And I'm just going to stop there to say, if you approve more variances, we compromise council's ability to require a public road and a master plan of subdivision. It's not minor. Community vehemently opposes this. Please let council review the entirety.
Thank you.
Thank
Perfect
you.
timing. Any questions for the deputy? No? Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there Barry Morrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a resident of the Princess Anne area, which the RGRA more or less consults with.
Actually, can we get your address for the?
Yeah. I'm 1 Ireland Court, and I am a resident. I have been there for 40 years, I suppose. I'm also a retired city planner with 50 years experience, and I have some serious concerns with this application. And essentially, if you wade through all of the math and all of the complexities, basically what this application is asking for is to build 211 homes without any parking whatsoever. Okay, that's the severity of it. It's from a variance point of view, it's about a 50% reduction from what the applicable bylaw requires, regardless of what other bylaws that the city is now using and is applying in various circumstances. So, yes, I would have to concur that this is most certainly not a technical variance. It's a very substantive alteration from the bylaw. It's a 50% reduction. And I don't think it meets certainly any of the 4 tests of the Planning Act for this particular process. From that perspective, I'd also note, and I'll get to it later, I guess, but this application has been submitted with a zoning waiver. So you do not have the benefit of the zoning examiner on this application. I would also note that the transportation comments that the applicant is relying on does not speak to the propriety of this being dealt with by a committee of adjustment and or by a council. And, I think that becomes a very critical thing. Now, we did meet with the developer, and we had a good meeting. They all seem like nice guys, to tell you the truth. And they brought their transportation consultant, who I regard as a very good one. But when asked if they could come up with any project that had been approved with this level of parking not provided in any single location, anywhere, and especially in a location like this, in the so-called suburban area, they freely admitted they could not identify any such project. Okay, so aside from these issues of whether it meets the 4 tests or not, I think it's very important that it go back to council. I would suggest if anybody wants to persist in this particular request of relief from the bylaw, that it should go to council. And the reason for that is that this was a very unusual matter being dealt with by council. Number one, council had an interest in the land. They owned the land through Create Toronto, and they sold it to this developer in a non-competitive bid in order to get a so-called comprehensive development. And in so doing, they had a very specific approach to this. It was negotiated by a whole number of parties. There was an agreement between the developer and Create Toronto that they would not appeal any approval for this development if it was done exactly the way that it is. And in so doing, they went to the community, and the community had to give an undertaking through Councillor Holiday that they also would not appeal it. So they got behind it, and this development proceeded. Well, the developer, when he got that approval, he didn't appeal it. He didn't formally do what he wasn't supposed to do, but he did submit a new application doubling the required density. Now, he had a major, he's had a number of changes that he's proposed, and one of them is very troubling, and that is your variance application that was decided in November 2023. And if you read that application, it was to change the unit mix, but there was, for some reason, a condition put in that it be limited, that this building be limited to 370 units, and that has been approved. Now, one of the things that's happened because of the process that they're using is that, in my humble and respectful opinion, either building A or building B can't be built. And that's how serious that particular variance is, because now they want to do 370 units, and they now don't have 130 units for these other buildings. It's very serious because building A is only 117 units. So all these matters have to be sorted out by council. They can't be sorted out by the committee. I did go to the planning department, and I raised this issue with them of the 130 units, and they responded to me last night at 4:30 and said, we'll try to look into it. So there we go. I guess I'm out of time.
I'm going to get you to wrap up, but I think you've hit sort of one of the key points in all of this is that we're trying to look at a small part of a large development, and it's hard to do that without the full context of the larger development.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman, and I don't know where council will come down on the parking relief or what level they would have, but I think that's the appropriate thing. They need to not come through the Committee of Adjustment. If they want to do this, they need to file an independent rezoning to council.
Fair.
Let council deal with all these matters.
We get it, thank you.
Yeah.
Any
Sorry.
questions for this deputant? No? Okay, thank you, well presented.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We have Alexandria Hopkins still.
So we have a couple call-ins. So there's one that I recognize the phone number. There's another one I don't recognize. So I'll go for Alexandra first. Oh, is there someone else in person that wanted to speak on this item? Okay, no. So I'll just connect to Alexandra. Hello?
Hi, sorry, no, I wasn't put down to talk, Thomas. I'm not sure what happened. In
Oh,
the email.
okay. Sorry, we just had you.
Okay, no worries, we have
Don't
your
worry
name,
about it.
so, thank you.
No worries.
Is there anyone else?
So I'm just gonna double check this number that I don't recognize. I'll see if they want to talk. Hello? Hello, this is for user 416889. Can you hear me? We can hear you. Do you like to participate for this item, or are you just here to listen?
Okay, I'm going to get the, if there's no one else, I'm going to get the applicant to come back up for the rebuttal.
So there was one person that would join, they left, they didn't come back, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
You've got the floor.
Okay, thank you. And I'll try to do my best to address the concerns that were raised. I do want to thank everyone who has come and waited to attend to express their comments. One thing I can say is we do recognize that parking is a very serious issue. It's a big issue on almost every application that I work on. So that is understood and appreciated. However, in response to the concerns raised, I would again reiterate that it is the city's policy, including expressed in the official plan and the zoning bylaw, to move away from reliance on the private automobile. This site is designated mixed-use areas in the official plan. It's on an avenue. Avenues are identified growth areas in the official plan. And one of the policy objectives for the mixed-use areas, again, is reducing reliance on the private automobile and encouraging ulterior modes of transportation. There is higher order transit being built on this corridor. And so, again, that direction has now been brought into the city's zoning bylaw, which would require 0 spaces for resident uses and a minimum requirement for visitor uses. I'll note that the rezoning application for the building A and B portion of the lands was filed after that new standard came into effect. So that application is actually subject to those standards requiring 0 parking for residents. That's not to say that's what's proposed, but that's what would be permitted as of right for that portion of the site. I just want to clarify another thing. In terms of the reference to the spaces for the plaza in the ultimate condition, again, I just want to clarify, there are going to be 154 surface parking spaces in the ultimate condition. Those spaces will serve the existing plaza as well as the newly proposed retail uses within the new buildings. Building C will also have dedicated visitor and non-residential parking. In terms of the process, again, I do recognize that this is a very complex and unique situation just with all the various applications. The intent has been to advance particularly Building C, given the substantial affordable housing component, which was secured under the previous zoning. The built form has remained the same, and we've been advancing this project through site plan, which has necessitated several changes to which we brought forward to the committee. I'll just speak to the matter of the public road. This has been a matter that was dealt with years ago through the previous rezoning process. I'll just highlight for the committee that staff have not raised the need for a public road. City planning has not commented on this application. And the reason why a public road was actually indicated by staff as not being desirable is that there are easements over the site which would encumber the ability to provide a public road. It has nothing to do with where garages are located. It's that there are right-of-way easements over the site, private right-of-way easements. And we would also be able to provide, and I can defer to my colleague Catalina about other examples in the city where similar rates of parking have been approved.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude that that's the end of your rebuttal, but I do want to come back to the example. You gave me an example of 1329 John Street. I asked for examples in Etobicoke. The example you provided is in the former city of York, not in the former city of Etobicoke. So again, I would like you to provide me with examples with similar parking ratios that have been approved or have gone forward within the former city of Etobicoke. And the reason for that differentiation is because Etobicoke does not allow overnight parking, whereas York and Toronto do.
And I apologize, Mr. Chair. That was an example that just came to my head, having recently worked on it, but Catalina can speak to that further.
Yeah, Catalina Moyano from BA Group. Address is 95 St. Clair Avenue West. So a few additional examples that we have is 23 Buckingham Street in Etobicoke, nearest intersection Royal York Queensway. Resident rate is 0.34 per unit and visitor rate is 0.09 per unit.
Number of units of that development?
370.
Okay.
We also have 300 the East Mall. Number of units is 1,135. It also has retail and community space. And the approved residential rate is 0.18 per unit and 0.05 for a residential visitor.
And is that an aggregate of the types of units, or is there a differentiation for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom?
No, it's an aggregate.
Okay.
For all units.
Thanks.
Another example is 1306 the Queensway. Number of units is 1,124. Also approved residential rate is 0.18 per unit and residential visitor is 0.05.
And these are all projects that are in the development stage or are under construction?
I know a number of them are in the construction phase.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is, I want to come back to the commercial parking and what controls are going to be put in place to prevent commuter parking in the mall.
Yeah, so that would be an operations issue. And currently no overnight parking is permitted in the plaza. And so that rule would continue to apply. But again, that is an operations.
And in terms of, understood, in terms of the ratios, you're talking 150 spots per 4,000 square meters of commercial space, but what is the commercial space that's going to be in Building C?
In terms of the GFA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could get
1489.
1,489 square meters, and there's 19 non-residential spaces. The unique thing about this site as well, if I may just clarify, is that the visitor parking and the non-residential parking is allowed under the zoning to be shared. We're looking at it as separate requirements, but it is permitted under the zoning to be
yeah, we've seen a fair bit of that. I mean,
yeah.
But you're also reducing the amount of visitors, so it's a wash in my mind. And in terms of the number of spots that you're looking to provide in the final irradiation, you're still looking at a slight reduction over what the current is.
In terms of the plaza, or
in terms of the number of commercial parking spots?
Yes.
In relation to the amount of commercial space that's being provided.
It would be a reduction of what's existing, but it would vastly exceed what's permitted as of right.
No, I understand, but, you know, if people visit that plaza, I mean, I go to M&M's there, we use that, we know what that's like. It's not going to change. People are not going to, you know, take the LRT to buy their M&M's frozen food. Anyway, thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, in the RGRA presentation, there was talk about the fact it's kind of coming piecemeal as opposed to one piece to the committee, and I didn't hear you comment on that. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that, and again, appreciate that this application is complex. The intent has been for Building C in particular and Building D because the form of those buildings is advancing under the same form that was approved in 2021. So the intent has been for those buildings to proceed through a site plan process. Also, given the affordable housing component within those projects, there is a desire to get those projects moving faster. So that portion of the site is to advance under the existing zoning. The applicant has come back in for a new rezoning application, which proposes, and I will agree, substantive changes in height and density to buildings A and B, but the form of buildings C and D has remained unchanged. So that application is being those changes are being dealt with through a more formal rezoning process. And that would be, again, A and B, which is phase 3.
Okay, I don't want to kind of get labeled as always asking for definitions, but can you define for this project what you're talking about with affordable housing?
It would be affordable rental housing. In terms of how the units are defined as affordable, I can't speak to that, but my understanding is they'd be under the city's definition of what's considered affordable. There was an agreement in place as part of the previous rezoning approval, which speaks to that. And for every, I think it's just under 10% or just under 10% units, one unit has to be provided as an affordable rental unit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll take it into committee.
Thank you.
So we have before us, I think, the third or fourth.
Stan, I guess just one other question. Was a decision made whether or not we get to see the counselor's letter or not?
Yeah, we can see that. Can staff put that up again, please? And in the meantime, while that's coming up, is there any other discussion that... Okay,
Can that be enlarged?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time reading that.
You can't read that.
So he's suggesting 2 conditions? You know what, I don't even want to get into that, it's so late, but like, what's the gist of his position? Yeah, I mean, he's putting doubt onto the other parts of the approval process that's going through here. Okay, I get the gist of it anyway. Rick, can you see it, or? It's on your, like, can you, if you open the WebEx. Yeah, if you can show them. So I just want to try to maybe initiate some discussion on this while Rick is looking at that. So we've had a number of applications, a number of situations where developers come back to us because the parking rules have changed, and they, you know, irrespective of what was approved previously, They now want to come back to the new rules. Just as a footnote, if the parking had gone the other way, I'm sure no one would be coming back to us. But that's just my sarcastic statement for the day. I think, in all seriousness, Etobicoke is not the rest of Toronto. Parking is a bit of a different situation here, and that's why I specifically wanted some examples, other examples in Etobicoke, where you don't have overnight parking and you don't have that luxury of the overflow to go to the streets. And we have some context now of what's happening with the commercial component, which basically means the parking is going to be what it is or less. And, you know, it's all contingent on this LRT that's 4 years behind schedule on opening. And this is the extension of that part. So those are my comments. If anyone has any others before we're ready for a motion, please provide them. No? Okay, thank you. Don, any words of wisdom?
Well, I'll just say, I very much depend on and trust comments from commenting agencies. And in this case, the key commenting agent is the Transportation Review Department, who has no issues with the 4 variances being requested. And I'm personally very strongly inclined to accept the advice of those professionals in that department.
Okay, so we have some comments of opposing views, and I guess it's really up to committee members how they feel and how they're going to vote. Is anyone ready for a motion? Rick, are you okay with what you've got there? Yeah. Okay. Natalia, you're okay?
Want to hear a motion? Yeah, again, the key commentary I think we need to consider here, notwithstanding the views of the neighborhood, very much appreciate their views. However, I think we have to have an inclination to respect and trust our professional commenting agencies, in this case, Transportation Review, who has no issues with any of the variances. So I'm satisfied that the application meets the 4 tests, and I move approval without conditions.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there a seconder for that motion? Okay, given that there is no seconder, I'm going to declare that motion failed. Is there anyone wishing to do an alternate motion?
Mr. Chair, I regret that I missed the window for opportunity. I was going to second the first motion. You're very fast on the...
Sorry. Bit of a dilemma here. I mean, we can pass another motion and come back again. Let's see. I mean, there's nothing to stop you from proposing a motion in favor. If not, I'm prepared to propose a motion to refuse. So I leave it to you. Rick? You're going to wait and see. Okay, I have grave concerns about the piecemealing that's been happening with a number of these applications. And this one's is back for a 3rd kick at the can now. And I think we're usurping the proper process for this, which is a rezoning and/or a more fulsome review, which would be at T-Lab. So in that regard, I'm going to move a motion to refuse. You're going to second that? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? So, I'm surprised.
You influenced me.
Okay. The application is refused. Okay. I don't like moving motions as the chair, but I just felt we had to go somewhere, so.
I'm glad you did.
I'd like a motion to adjourn. Is anyone willing to propose that? Thank you, Mr. Ross. We're adjourned at 1:21. Oh, I thought you were going to leave. Sorry, who seconded that? Rick, Natalia. No, Rick seconded it, didn't he? Not. I meant the preview, yeah, not the motion